Guys, give a round of applause for Akhil.
Hi everyone. My voice is reaching everyone, right? Yes. Okay. So before we start, let me introduce myself. My name is Akhil and currently working with EPAM system as lead software engineer. Uh, I'm having more than 10 years of experience in software development, mostly in Python and related technologies. So let's start on the topic, an introduction to Hasura. Before I, discuss more into Hasura, I'd like to understand how many of you have heard this technology, Hasura. Okay, two people. So, if you guys have used it or just explored this, explore you also. Okay. Okay, I think that for the audience, this tool is going to be a very much useful and for the learning purpose as well. And before we come into Hasura and its usage and how we set it up and what kind of benefits we can achieve, how many of you know about REST APIs or APIs? I think everyone would be knowing it because if we are working on front end or the back end, APIs are the core of it through which we communicate, and what we communicate is the data, right? So before we come to any API, we have a data to share. You all agree, right? So we have a database, and then we think of creating any API, right? So with API, we have heard REST API. How many of you have heard GraphQL API? Nobody else? Okay. So any difference you know about between REST API and GraphQL API? Yeah. Would you like to? Yeah, yeah.
So basically, in the same here, we need to pass a particular format, like what would be my body, this data should be there. But in GraphQL, you do not have to specify USP. It's much.
Okay. Would you like thank you. Would you like to say something about that?
Graphical is much easier to set up. I think once it's set up, we don't need to do any additional work. The rest of it, we have to keep on building. Once the rest is graphic is set up, we can call and pass the schema and get the result. Whatever is.
Oh, okay. Thanks. So I'd like to give you some idea about GraphQL and why it was invented before we come to Hasura. Because Hasura is nothing but a tool to generate the GraphQL APIs. So for REST API as well, we set up the web server. So whether you use Django, Flask, Fast API, Java servlets, right? So every all these frameworks you use to create a REST API. So you create basically an application server and then you set up a web server behind it and then you serve your APIs, right? Similarly, for GraphQL APIs, you will have to do the same exercise, but with different frameworks, right? So if I say to you that you have a database, you have to create third APIs to share your data, and you do not have to write any code, just need to plug in. For example, you have data, you just give your database credentials to a tool, and then your APIs are there. If you have millions of tables in your database, you have just one table, right? So you do not have to create any web server for it. But why GraphQL is better than REST API, or where it was in? Okay, so it was a Facebook era where we were installing the Facebook apps, and before that we were using Facebook app over the web browser. Okay, so till web browser we didn't have any problem of data. So for example, you have a user table, and in user you had, for example, 100 fields in user table, right? So to get your username, you will have to have a REST API, and the REST API was giving you all the 100 fields, and out of which you were using two fields in any of your application, right? So till web browser there was no problem, because memory was not that much issue. But once mobile application were there, so your mobile was having a limited memory, and you could not afford to have 100 fields out of which you had to use two fields, right? So Facebook invented such a technology which says you have an endpoint, you decide how many fields you want, right? So two fields, three fields, whichever you want on your web page, you can decide. So GraphQL was invented by Facebook for this particular reason. So in REST API, so like I mentioned, Hasura is a open source GraphQL engine. It gives you a GraphQL APIs production ready without writing any code. Okay, so don't be worried, if you're thinking that I'm a backend developer or I'm thinking to become a backend developer in a good corporate industry, but this tool could, remove my job. It's not like that. All the tools or technologies is just to help the developer, right? Like Gen AI is there. So it is just to assist the developers to write the applications in a faster way, right? So with this technology, you would be writing APIs, but without writing the code, but you would be knowing which particular table should be exposed, for which there should be an API. So if you have a Postgres database already, or you have any other database which Hasura supports, you can just tell Hasura that this is the database, and these are the tables for which I want the API, and APIs will be there. You do not have to write any code. So this Hasura is for that purpose. So this tool looks promising and interesting to you. It's like, we will be writing. We'll take a 1 month to write a web server, and then we will expose to the API. Whereas this tool can expose all of your data in terms of APIs. Out of those GraphQL endpoints, you could decide to have few REST API endpoints as well, because some of other applications who would be consuming your data could rely on REST APIs, right? So think of a faster development. So this is an era where we want a product to be shipped very fast, right? So we can't afford to have 6 months deadline to launch a product, or to launch one application or piece of application for any purpose in the world. So these tools, are being, developed just to assist developers to ship the products in a faster way, and with more security, plus an ease to develop the things, so that, focus should be on the development of the product, not on the code. So this also I, just explained. So this simplifies the backend development and real-time capabilities. Real-time capabilities means if your database is going to have a new record in it, so that will be in real time, will be shared with the APIs generated through Azure. So it's not like, it will be syncing over the time with your database, and then, that data will be shared. So it's a real-time connectivity. Now, GraphQL versus REST. So REST API is having a fixed endpoint. If you know, if you have an endpoint like, some URL, then slash users, and then slash some ID or list users. So you create a lot of endpoints in REST, and each endpoint will give you a fixed output. Right? And it could be overfetching, underfetching. Like I mentioned, 100 fields. If the endpoint is returning, you need two fields. So it's an overfetching. And it could also be a case like, your endpoint is giving you a limited data for that. you will have to again have another endpoint for the remaining part of the data, right? So it could be an undertaking, and for this purpose, you will have to have multiple requests for the related data because data sometimes is present over the multiple tables, right? Whereas in GraphQL, you have and then all fields for that schema you want, whether you want to fetch the data or you want to create the data, right? So there is a terminology, query, mutation, subscriptions in GraphQL terminology. If you explore GraphQL, so you'll get to know all these points. So this is just the difference between GraphQL and REST. Okay, we'll slowly come to Hasura, but I want to create the foundation of why we are exploring Hasura and how it assists us. So even if we have a related data present in over multiple tables, so we just have a single request with GraphQL and we get that data, right? So this is the advantage of GraphQL over the REST. But it's not like we can replace REST APIs with the GraphQL in every scenario, right? We sometimes have a very complex business logic for which we write the REST API. So REST APIs will be there, but for the CRUD operations where we just share the data and we create the REST APIs for it, so it's better to have a GraphQL API for in that case. Now we'll come to GraphQL with Hasura, right? So before we come to Hasura, we'll understand the architecture of it. So any tool or any technology has some architecture, has some components within it, and each component is responsible for serving something. So mostly it is built for the Postgres. So Postgres is very much popular SQL database. However, it is going to support multiple databases and also NoSQL databases as well. So slowly they are growing and supporting multiple databases. But initially they started their support for the Postgres. So in components, we have Hasura engine, and that is a core service that provides GraphQL API. Next, we have metadata storage, which stores Hasura configuration. So, like I mentioned, if we have a Postgres database or we have a multiple databases, so we will have to store that information that out of those databases, how many schemas we want to expose, within the schema, how many tables we want to expose. So this is the metadata, and that is used for it. Then we have a fourth webhook. Sometimes, so this will be a endpoint, right? And this endpoint, it cannot be a public one, right? So generally, for the learning purpose, we can leave it as a public. But when we'll be using it in production, we would like some sort of authentication, right? So any endpoint in your organization, if you will be putting it under production, so you would like to have your common authentication for it. You don't want for every service you will write a separate authentication bracket. Sometimes we have a common authentication layer through which we authenticate all our services within the organization. So this Asura server is going to be within your organization, and you would like to authenticate every request coming to Asura endpoint through your common authentication layer. So this is why Asura provides you a webhook through which you will provide your authentication endpoint which you have for your organization, and that you can embed in terms of webhook with Asura. So any request coming to Asura will check if webhook is set or not for authentication, and whichever endpoint you provide to it, all the requests will go into it. You will be authenticating all the requests, all the users over there, and you will provide an output to the Hasura bag with some headers where you will be providing user ID. So there is a format which Hasura expects that this is the header I want in terms of ID, and then further permissions logic you can write in the metadata. Next we have event triggers. So with data, any manipulation to data could happen, like we are deleting any row, we are updating any row. So those events also we can capture within Hasura, and you can do any action on it. What kind of action? You can hit your another API where you can provide, like, this is the schema changes, this is the table on which this operation is happening, and this is the old report or new report in case of update operation, right? So all this event will be captured, and this event will be triggered, and you can provide again to Hasura whether you have a third party endpoint to trigger on this event, or you want Hasura to do something. Okay. Then we have remote schemas. So remote schemas is nothing but, like, you have your GraphQL server, I have my own GraphQL server, and if I want any request coming to my GraphQL server, that means on my Hasura some request is coming in. So on that particular request, if I want to club the response from your GraphQL as well, so I can do that, and the resultant output would be a mix of yours and mine, right? So this is a remote schema thing. Actions are something which is a custom business logic. So you could write a logic somewhere else in some software or some third party and event or some particular endpoint to be, right? So these will be the points. So the important point is Hasura engine and the metadata storage, right? Without which we cannot have any Hasura. So far, any doubt or any gap in the learning? What Hasura, what GraphQL, what REST, why Hasura is there? So far, we just discussed, like, why Hasura, what Hasura provides, what is GraphQL, what is REST, what is the difference between GraphQL and the REST API. No doubt so far? Okay. So features of Hasura is just like that we discussed, like it gives you an instant GraphQL API, and it's a real-time capabilities, authentication, authorization, with which we can club the data from multiple sources, and actions also we just discussed that we could write any custom business logic and that could be triggered. So this was about Hasura and its basic introduction. We can next see how we can set it up on your system, how you can attach your existing database to it, or you can create another database with it, because for metadata it uses the Postgres database. So anyone is here who is not knowing Docker? Everybody knows Docker. Okay. So Docker is the technology through which, you could have an image of any software that you can install very easily. So this deployment of Hasura, for example, Hasura I want to install on my system. So I'll be using Docker, so that, through the Hasura documentation you could find a Docker compose file. You can download it. Through that you can uh, you know start your Docker container, and that Docker containers would provide you the in just few seconds our Hasura server up, right? And if you have any database, existing database having millions of tables, right? So that will also be up in just few seconds, right? Then you will quickly be selecting the tables for which you want your DBase, right? I think few more seconds it will need. You could have your big database APIs be ready to share, right? You do not have to write any web server, and it's pure cost technology. However, it also has the paid version where you would have more features of it. You could have Asura Cloud, so installation, you do not have to install it somewhere on your on-prem, right? So these are the pros and cons of Azure. So pros are like rapid API development, real-time capabilities, extensible and flexible APIs will be there, and strong community support. So it could be a complexity of the business, but for these tech talks or some videos on tutorials in very few days, you'll get to learn Asura. So I won't say it's a much complexity, but any new technology which you are not known to is looks complex initially. But when you understand the benefits of it and you understand the technology, so then it becomes very easy. So it's vendor lock-in, right? So it will be installed somewhere, or then you will have to manage it. Otherwise, there is a paid version where Asura Cloud will be there. There you can deploy it. Performance overhead for very complex queries. So, like I mentioned, this is for just data sharing where normal CRUD APIs are there. You can join the data together. However, you can create your custom fields which are not there in the table. You can create them in the Asura. You can tell that this field will be getting the data from another table or which is related to this one which field. So joins operations and all you can do, and you can introduce those new fields which will be exposed in the APIs, but they will not be there in the tables itself, right? And customization limitations. So you cannot customize too much within this field. So you can use it for real-time chat applications, uh, live dashboards and analytics, because this is all to share the data. So data is all about the chats. Data is all about any cricket boards or anything, right? Where data is being fed into the table, and you want APIs to share that data. So for which this is very comfortable tool, and this will be for real-time notification. So whenever event triggers we discuss, who event triggers we should notify uh, real-time changes to the data. So in this live demo, we'll be exploring how we can install the Docker Compose file from the documentation itself. However, on my system, I have installed it. I have the database few tables, uh, but I will be showing you on the documentation where you could find that Docker Compose file, how it looks like, what is the content within it, right? How you can customize it to have your own existing database. Otherwise, it will have its own for metadata. We'll see how we can expose tables. We'll see how we can create relationship between two different tables, right? We'll see how we can query a mutation example. So mutation is just for insertion. So whenever we want to insert or update the data within SQL, so we use the term mutation, and query is just SQL query. Event triggers, we understand how we can set the event triggers, and how we can make the any existing query which is a GraphQL endpoint within with some body, how we can rectify that. So far, any questions? Any gap in the understanding? Yeah, please.
What did you know about the vendor of if there's no migration, then you get for if you want to use it now.
You can do that. So for example, I'll be installing it on my system, right? So similarly, you can install it on your on-prem server as well. Otherwise, if you want a paid version of it, if you want Asura Cloud to be used, if you do not have any cloud of your own. So normally, organizations have their own on-prem server, or they have their cloud services of things like AWS or CNCG or Azure. So they want everything together, right? So they do not want to use Asura Cloud. But if you do not have any cloud, so you would be having that. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to show. So this is the Asura documentation. You can go to this site, asura.io, and under the deployment guides, you will see Docker. And here you have a way, right? So So you can get the Docker compose file through this command, wget docker command. So how it looks like? So this kind of file is there once you get that file from the documentation. Here you can see there is a Postgres image being used, right? And here you will see environment variables. So one environment variable is Asura GraphQL metadata database URL. Okay. So with this Postgres image, you would have a Postgres server on your system. Understand? Those who know Docker technology configure something. Okay. So for example, you have a Postgres, so you will be getting Postgres server on your system. So through Docker, there is an image. Within that image, passwords and the username of that Postgres server is there. You can install it. Okay. So you can set any Postgres here for the metadata purpose. So metadata is just to create it. Okay. So there will be a console. There will be a UI once we turn it on. So one UI will be there on which you can perform all these actions. Okay. Then these actions will be saved somewhere because once you shut down that image and tomorrow you turn it up, right? So that persistent metadata should be there. So with this environment variables, you can pass on the Postgres database for the metadata purpose. And the next we have a PG database URL. So PG database URL is that URL where your actual database is there. Okay, not just the metadata. For my example, I'll be using the same database, but as you can see, I'm using the same database here. But if you have any existing database that you can pass on here with the driver name and the username, password, right? With the port and the database name. So you can pass on that database here. If it is having already millions of tables, so APIs for them will be there. Okay, you do not have to do anything. Next is enable console. That means then we have a dev mode logs. Next, we have a important part is Asura GraphQL admin secret. So the UI that I will be turning on after this image file up, it will ask me for an admin secret. Okay, so that admin secret will be for the admin user. Okay, the authentication webhook I am not covering here, but that webhook is provided. That will be for the normal user authentication. So there will be multiple types of users for admin or non-admin. So this is sort of file content that I just explained. Next, image will be data connector agent. Okay. Now, once we have this file, we'll use the command Docker Composer, right? You know this command, Docker Composer for Docker Compose file. So we'll see all these services are being up, right? 8080 point we'll use where Sura UI we will see. So you just need to, because this is running on my local host, so local host 80804, you will see something like this. So this is the scheme of Asura UI that we will see. So this is installed on your system within few seconds. Now you'll come to this data part here. Okay. You will see two tables I have created already, employees and user. You can create or you can connect here, connect database. Okay. You can choose any of the database. So Postgres, whichever database is here is supported by Azure as of today, or whichever latest image of Docker Compose you would get, you'll get to know how many databases Azure is supported as of today, and then you can click here, connect existing database. You can provide those credentials to environment variables or database URL format. You can pass connection parameters like username, password, database name, or support, right? Or any dynamic URL, right? So this way you can connect your own database for multiple databases you can create, connect to this tool, right? If I come, if I come to this default one, okay. So I have employee schema. Within this employee schema, I have a designation and employees table. Within users schema, I have users table. So you can create uh, within this metadata because I'm using a metadata database for my data as well, but you could have multiple databases within it. Now, once you have, so here you can see within employees, I have designation and employees. Here on the right side, you can see untracked tables, untracked foreign key relationships. So only two tables I had, designation and employees. Otherwise, if I had few more tables, so they would be listed here, untracked tables, and there will be a track button over it. If I click on it, so initially once you will be connecting your existing database, every table will be non-tracked. Okay, so you will see in each schema all the tables under here, and you can click on track table so that they would be visible here. Okay, so what it means, whichever table is visible here or is being tracked, we will be able to query here. Okay, so all these you can see here. So for example, this is the query. So this is the syntax to get the data. So employee schema, employee table, and then field ID I am using, and then user first name. If I click and I say my query, I want to get all the data I will get it here. Okay. If I go back to data again, understand what's under employees table. So employees table is the table having ID field, user ID, designation ID, and user first name. Okay. Then we can insert the rows so here as well. We can modify the rows here as well. And relationship, right? So one relationship I had created user first name. It's my custom field that I mentioned, like we can introduce our custom field. So user first name is not into the schema of the employees table, but a user first name I have created as a field which is visible on the screen as well. And I can go ahead with this relationship. I can create more relationships like this. If I click on here, okay, I can name anything to it. So, for example, my custom field, okay, and this is my source data, and this is to be reference. So, for example, I want to have a designation, right? So, designation ID I am having. I want to get this designation being reference to designation table, designations ID column, okay, and create a relationship. Okay, so my custom field I have introduced another field into this table, which is will not be into the database but will be visible on the API part. Now, if I go to API, right, and if I go here and write, so here you will see all the fields. So here you can see my custom field is there. Okay, so this is the explorer for which you can choose which all fields are visible and how you can prepare the query. Okay, so my custom field designation, right? So it is there. If I click my query, I get my custom field and designation. Okay, so this becomes the query. Now, how in production, how you will be using it. So you will be normally be using Postman or any, you know, to which you create a you call any REST API. I'll be using for this exercise Postman. So how it happens? In Postman, you would have an endpoint 80. So like in GraphQL, we have a single endpoint, and the body tells you which data you will be receiving. Okay, and method will always be post. With this single endpoint, you could have data of your millions of tables present in one database or multiple databases, and you can customize or you can join together. You can create custom fields within it, and how you can get it. So in headers, let's see what all things you would be needing. So X Asura admin secret is the header name that you need, and the value you will have to keep for admin secret that we had exposed in environment variables while we use the Docker compose file, right? In body, you can mention like this is the query, and this query needs to be. So, for example, we just use this one, right? So this query we have now. First, we will stringify it. Okay. So this becomes the query now. I'll be replacing this one with this. So now I hit send. I'll get all that data here. Okay. So API is ready now. You can hit it from Postman or from your application as well. Now come to another thing with it. So this was the query, and this is the mutation part where all these. Now you will be confused like how we decide to insert employee designation or all these names. Okay, so once you have all these names are created automatically. You can see on the Explorer side, insert, update, all these operations, all these queries names are already there. Okay, one action I also created, so that action name is also there. So if you want to delete something, you can. So this is just to help creating your queries. Okay, because you will not be knowing which all fields will be there. So initially, just to share your APIs with someone else, you would be creating this endpoint, and then you would be creating some payload, and you can tell them or you can provide a knowledge to him that these are the 100 or 20 fields I have. You can choose by querying my API. Okay, so this way that other person would be knowing like which all fields he will be needing, and he can customize the body of that API. Now, next would be the event part. Okay. So, for example, I have created designation edit as an event, but I provided here the trigger name. What I'm saying, whenever this is insert operation on designation table. Okay. So this is the created event trigger. Uh, I show how you can create another. Okay. Now this is the retry configuration. Number of retries. I don't want to retry if that event is missed. Then you provide. If there is a new report hit my Asura again, this will be the payload that will be there in terms of insert event. So this is the insert event. So operation is insert. All this data is will be shared with you. Okay. So Asura is creating this data and that will be shared uh, whichever action you want to perform. So you can write any API endpoint. That API endpoint will be hit with this particular code. Okay. So if you want to create another event trigger. So it could be like custom designation added. You can choose the database, so you could have multiple databases. everyone in, you can use employee select table designation. You can choose like if there is an update on this designation table, I want to set up, and you can create event trigger. So this is the webhook that we want to provide. So we can choose to have our own. Okay. So this designation is this custom designation. Okay. So I just so whenever now here you go to designation, you modify any of the field. You go here and you just write software engineer one. Okay, you save it. Now you go to events. You will see this is the ID. Okay, this was the old setup. This event trigger on the update part of the designation. Okay, this is the operation update and all this. So this becomes a payload to your API, whichever webhook you set, and there you can get to know like this operation happened on this particular table, and this was the previous value, and this is the new value. So which so this way you can have the your event triggers on the table first. Okay. So this was the idea of this demo. Overwhelming or we did not understand anything. Now within the questions we can understand like which you understood where there was a gap. Yeah.
So very basic one. Why post?
So the first is Hasura initially started with supporting Postgres, right? In the Docker Compose file also you just so that they have the Postgres image for their metadata. Okay, your database could be anyone which Hasura supports. So when we started, when I went to the page where I was creating the that supported by Hasura. So you can choose any of it.
Yeah, we can, but I'm asking, is there any preference in what we should go with? Only
No, no. So if you have any existing database which is among them, you can choose it because you will not be migrating your database to any other database, right? You will be doing it if you want to use Hasura and Hasura doesn't support your database type, right? Otherwise, MySQL, Postgres, all these are there. Hasura is also working on the NoSQL databases. Okay, so Hasura, your something on teams in India, a business problem, beginning or that business problem that I went through because it could be very overwhelming with you. But if there is a audience where you know they are exploring Hasura, or last session was also on Hasura. So it is ready. You could have multiple databases. The beauty of it, you know, join two tables, giving you data, right? So that flexibility, joining the data to the every in Bangalore for us for Indians production ready. Why I'm saying production ready because I'm using it in production and I'm not using it for my academic project or any name that client for which I'm working, but it's a very big tech chain. Okay, you must be using the products of it. You can just imagine that which client I'm talking about. So it's it gives you production ready. So,
performance right? How does it perform when the
yeah, so when you set it up on your plan or you use this, so all the API rate limiting things will be as much normal like you have for other web server. So this is also a web server, right? Now all the traffic management you would be doing if you're deploying it on your own server, whether it's any cloud offerings or your own prem, right? Otherwise, more effort from it. So you can use the free version of it. So Azure Cloud will be deploying this instance of Azure on this cloud. You can tell all the rate limiting things. Okay, all the traffic management things you can just calculate. can set up with the paid version. And if you don't have a paid version, you can separate it from your. Yeah, so configuration part is there. There you can manage it. Yes, it's managed.
It's free also or not?
Yeah, it's free. We are using free version.
Oh,
Yeah. Because we are using it like I installed it on myself. So we have deployed it on another cloud. So I think we are using AWS for it. So for the so Kubernetes way we are having we have separately loaded where this is running. We are not paying anything. We thought of for that particular business problem. So let me describe this small business problem. So we had a single database and we thought of so this single database we had this single customer. Within the organization, we have big organization with their multiple big teams are there. Everyone wants to own the authority of the data, right? These few tag tables are mine, or the schema is mine. So we had a unified database, and for the past 6 7 months, I'm working on that exercise just to separate out that database into two parts. We could not do because of Asura, because Asura had a relationship. Now the relationships was like if you separate out the databases, so it will not have a data relationship from other tables, which is there that I can have the customized field related to the other database. We can do that, but we also had a permission, right? So for that permission, I need to use if that user is coming to my server and if I'm authenticating it or giving that permission, then this table will be permissible to this user, right? So that user table should be somewhere with me, right? But if it is also with other database, then we will have to have a mirror copy of it just for that permission of it. So a lot of issues were there, and the way it exposes the related object with the same database and with the another different database. It's also a different relationship. So you just observe object relationship was there, right? So when I go to this data and segregation for employees relationship. So here you see this is the type object. So this is the object relationship. But if it is a from a different database, so it's a remote relationship, right? So all this metadata could be exported in a JSON file to your system as well, so that in another code repo you could use the same metadata because you have developed dev environment, is tag environment, production environment. You will not be creating all this again. Okay, so on dev environment, you just tested it, you finalize your metadata like all these schemas, all these relationship triggers you would be having that you can export. Okay, and there will be some settings to export. So there is a button export metadata. Okay, if you click on this JSON file is there, right? If I go to my downloads, if I open this JSON, so whichever we created will be visible here. Okay, so this is the default database, kind post base. This is the table, event triggers. We just created custom destination array, right? All this metadata will be there in this JSON. Now another instance or another deployment of Asura, you can import it. So all this work will be there, and so basically it's the kind of deployment help I'm saying, how we can deploy it. So in any whichever CI/CD pipeline you would be writing, so there you would be writing one command that this should be imported. Okay, so all this effort will be there. So all this is persistent, and this metadata will be stored in the metadata of that environment, metadata database. So you can choose if you want the metadata database to be a different one or of your data. Normally, it is preferred that we use the metadata separated from our production data. Yeah. And we have
The Postman, the token, the header, the value which you have passed, in Postman.
yeah. we had a Docker compose file. Within that, we had few environment variables, right? So we had a Kasura GraphQL admin secret, and here I had written this. Okay, so you can edit all these values. So this will be coming blank and commented because initially you do not need any Kasura admin secret, but as you know, move your application to tag environment, tag or dev environment, QA environment, you would like some sort of authentication. So this is for admin user, and authentication webhook we can use for normal authentication for every request coming in. And then in return we'll be returning one header X Asura user ID, through which you can also enforce permissions in the metadata. Then that this is the table, and you want your X. So in your token, a normal token which your organization provides, you could have user ID and the organization ID mapping as well. So in your token would be there would be a user ID, and in your schema you could write if this user ID is there in the token, then only you need to return the data for this schema. So for each schema, for each table, you could have that permission for the users. Yeah, and
I'm confused about it. Is this dependent on Postgres?
no, I just explained the question from here.
But still I'm not verified. I mean, because we are using two databases. First, we use a Postgres image and we use a Postgres, which is connected to our personal database. So, is this like Sora is dependent on Postgres? I think store metadata or something on Postgres, and we can integrate another database for creating GraphQL query, any database.
No, so you have this Docker compose file. Here you have Asura GraphQL metadata database URL. If you have your MySQL instance that you want to use for metadata, you can pass on the credential here. Under this PG database URL, you can provide the connection string of your database, right? On one of the screens, we just saw the list of the databases which Asura supports. So MySQL was one of them, MariaDB was one of them, any other multiple databases were there. So out of them, you can choose to have your database and you can provide the connection string here. Okay. In the Docker Compose, we just had this Postgres image. I just told you that Asura started supporting Postgres first. So it is a very good support for Postgres, but it is also supporting other databases. So that's why from the official documentation you get this sort of Docker image. But this sort of Docker image you could create for your own. If you do not own Postgres image, you could have your MariaDB image or MySQL image. Or if you do not want to have that to be there from this Docker Compose, you already have that one on your system or somewhere else. You can just provide the connection string.
So we can use another MariaDB.
Right. For metadata as well. Yeah, one question was coming from here. Anyone? Which language it is written? That I haven't checked. Yeah. So actual implementation language I haven't checked. Okay. So no questions. So we can let this talk. If you wish, you can connect me on LinkedIn. This is my username over the LinkedIn, and we can have more discussion, not just about Asura, but other tools that I am working on, or any other thing related to career or technology. You can discuss all. Okay. Thanks, Monica, for providing the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Akhil. Thank you so much. Okay, so Hasura, that's a heavy name, right? I'm too much afraid of this technology, but okay, we need to learn this. Okay, so did you like it? You can say no, but it was great, right? It was great. Okay, so anybody can tell me what is Hasura in just one line? You just said, what is
नीचे
Hasura?
रखना पड़ेगा.
Like this is important to focus on this.
Everyone, Monica, as I already introduced, but I'm Aryan. I'm the lead founding engineer at Standard, and I'm a full stack developer and also a cloud architect. Who has used AWS or about AWS? Okay, almost everyone. So we are going to talk about like how, like why do we need guardrails? What are guardrails, and what are the various methods of deploying resources into cloud? For example, deploying a database into AWS or Azure and so on and so forth. So first, I'm going to go through like where is the problem, where it all began, and what is the current solution, and then we're going to look into this and how we're trying to change the market ecosystem right now. Okay, so according to a study by Gartner and IBM, the current cloud spend of all the enterprises is approximately 10x of what they are actually budgeted for. And where is all of this 10x overspend coming from? Mostly from misconfiguration. So misconfiguration of cloud resources, which is usually over provisioning, security features, and operational infrastructure. So we developers are a bit lazy. We only care about like our application works and the customer centric. So in order to achieve that, we over provision our resources so that it never goes down. And we do not do the permissions very carefully so that it's accessible when it needs to be accessible. But like we do not very carefully choose the policies which are imposed on our servers, right? And that is why policies are important for a company in order to prevent all of these and make sure that there are no breaches, there is no overprovisioning, and so on and so forth. And the current solution is the popular one is open policy agent. Now, what is open policy agent? It is a policy agent written in Go and uses Rego, which is uh, like a policy version of Go language. And what it does is it can read all the outputs of these tools, and then you can write policies in order to control all of these tools, control all the various configurations, all the settings that you can do inside these tools. Rego can control them. But what is the problem with open policy agent? That is the problem with open policy agent. It has to be written in Rego, which is a very complex language, and especially for the people who are writing policies, right? Developers usually don't write policies, as I just said. We don't care about security that much. So these policies are written by security architects or CISOs, and they don't know how to code. So that's why we are sort of writing Terraform in order to simplify imposing guardrails. So I'm just gonna go in detail about what we do at Start Garden and on our platform. So as I talked about misconfigurations, how we help companies solve those misconfigurations, we divide it into three parts. First is discover. We help you gather all the misconfigurations that are there in the cloud by going into your cloud account and identifying which resources are correctly configured and incorrectly configured. And then we give you instructions on how you can rectify them. Second, we help you develop on the platform itself. We help you develop reusable infrastructure as code. For example, Terraform, Ulumi, and so on and so forth, CloudFormation. And then we help you also write policies, OPA policies. That's what we started with as well. And then we help you deploy. So in our platform, once you have written your infrastructure as code, you can use that to deploy. And why do we write infrastructure as code? Anyone? Why don't we just use console and directly deploy via AWS console? Why write code for it anyways? Time consuming. We have automation process, so it's going to declare how the system will. Exactly. So what happens in big companies?
companies is there's not just one deployment that happens for each environment. So there are multiple environments. You have dev, QA, testing, production, and then you have replication in production, which is hosted into regions. So when you're deploying a resource, it's not just one resource you have to deploy. You have to deploy it multiple times. And if you do that right, also you have to do it again and again and again. So that's why big companies and you also should use IAC to deploy any resource. My most popular one is Terraform. There you can write all the settings that you want to configure inside an EC2 resource, and basically that setting will be replicated across all the clouds that you want to deploy. Right? And then we help you execute that Terraform code, deploy those resources into your platform. Now, where our customers complained was the policies. Policies were too complex for them. They didn't know how to write it, and in order to write it, they had to know what was the output of Terraform first. In order to check, okay, I want to write a policy that makes sure that my S3 bucket is in public. So how do I do that? I need to first know the output of Terraform command, right? So you need to know the output against which you want to write a policy. You need to know Lego, and then you need to know what to control. This one gets very complex very fast, and that is why we wrote it so that we can have instructions provided in docs and have a no-code way of writing policy instead of writing code for it. Define it in a JSON, and you can have uh, processes built around policies where you can ask for approval and so on and so forth. So some example of common policies which are written. Uh, so for example, broad databases should be available in at least 3 availability zones. VMs cannot cost over 200 euros per month. Tagging policies for cost allocation should be present. So these are some of the policies. If not enforced, and if you just trust your developers, they are going to deploy a VM which is costing much more than this because to them availability is more important. So they just over provision. So that's the thing. You cannot trust your developers. So what do? You hire a cloud team, and then you make sure that all the requests goes to the cloud team for cloud expert, right? So what happens is the cloud team then gets overburdened because there are 100 developer teams, there is just one cloud team. So all the developer team rush to the cloud team, hey, I need this deployed, that deployed, and it creates a backlog of resources that need to be created. The agility is lost. Okay, so that's why we made Terrace policy engine, which is open source and it's written in Python. So if you guys know Python, you will be able to read the code, see what it is doing, and maybe even contribute. So one important thing is Stack Guardian is offering internships to people who contribute to Terrace. So if you're interested in contributing, do reach out. I have a Slack QR code at the end. So you can just scan that and join the community and ask any of us how to get started. Yeah. So the second point is we at Terrace provide guardrails for resources, configurations, cost, and process compliance. It is declarative in nature. How Terrace policy is written is in a basic. So there is nothing code about it. It's all written in a declarative basic format. And it has a Terraform-like architecture with core and providers, which I'll cover. Before I do that, I just want to show you the Terrace community. So it was released in May 2023 with this, as an open source project. And its primary goal, as I said, was to simplify policy definition and make policies simpler to write for anyone. And use cases I've already covered: IAC resources, Kubernetes configs, CI/CD pipelines, or any other JSON output that you want to evaluate. These users are some of the biggest users of Terrace policy engine, and they use Terrace on a day-to-day basis on our platform. They include like Siemens, Lufthansa, Gurugram, and there are many more, like Vivo. Okay, so today we have around 11 contributors sponsor from outside. Uh, right now, we have successfully decoupled Tariff, which was part of Stack Guardian before, but now it's completely independent open source project. It's community ready, and we have 5 providers. Okay. Now, going to the Tariff architecture. As I said in the previous slide, we follow a Terraform-like architecture where we have core and and providers. And why did we choose that? In order to make Terrace very easily extensible. Suppose you come to me tomorrow saying that, hey, Arunam, I want to that. I have this tool which, for example, generates GraphQL API, right? Gurugram. And I want to make sure that no one creates an API on this table. So we make sure that the logic to which actually reads an input from a tool, which is a provider, is separate from the code. So anyone can write a provider, depending on whichever tool they want to use, and then they can plug it in inside the code and use it as a test policy. Okay. So I've already said a bit about what is core and what is provider. Core is responsible for reading the policies, interpreting the variables, and reading the inputs. And provider is basically extracting and transforming data from that input into what Terrace can use to evaluate against the policy. Yeah. So you can define errors, custom errors, see what from where to get the input from, depending on the tool, and write custom evaluators as well. Yeah. Okay. So this is what a Terrace policy looks like. I know it can be a little intimidating at first, but I'm going to explain it. So the first part is the meta block, and you can imagine it as a import statement in your program. This will import the Terraform plan provider into your policy, and provider, as I said, will help you get the particular value from the input that you want to evaluate. And the second part we have is evaluators. This is a list of many checks you can imagine. So you can, in a policy, you can define multiple checks, and based on those checks, make sure that the final result of the policy is either a true or a false or a one, right? So these are the evaluators, and in each evaluator there is an ID, which I'll come to later. And the first block is the provider arts. These provider arts depend on which provider you're choosing. For example, in this one I chose Terraform plan. And inside the Terraform plan, I want to check that in any AWS instance, the tenancy attribute that should be equal to dedicated. So this is easy to read. I declare the Terraform resource type as AWS instance, Terraform resource attribute as tenancy, and the operation type is attribute. Now, what the operation type is attribute does is it extracts the tenancy attribute of AWS instance from the Terraform plan. And then in conditions, of course, we have the type of condition you want to like evaluate it. I have equals that make sure that the tenancy that we extracted the value is equal to dedicated. Yeah. So this is basically how a Terrace policy is written. And I know it looks complex, a little complex right now because you have to remember all these things, which is not ideal. But we have a solution for that as well. But before I go there, I want to show you some more Terrace policy. So we just, okay, this is the same example. Let's go into infra cost. Okay, what is infra cost? Has anyone heard about infra cost? Would you like to? So infra cost is basically for guessing the cost of a resource that you're going to deploy. For example, I'm going to deploy an AWS instance. So I want to know how much will it cost at the end of the month. Infra cost is just for that. So you, how you run Terrace to evaluate the policy. Infra cost is to evaluate the cost. Okay. Now, what if I want to control that cost and make sure that that cost doesn't cross the threshold? So this policy is an example of just that, where we are making sure the total monthly cost of Azure virtual machines is below 30. Yeah, so less than equal to 30. We have an infra cost provider. In the provider arts, we have an operation type, which is the total monthly cost, and the resource type, which is Azure virtual machine. Yeah, and in the condition, we are making sure that the total monthly cost is less than equal to 30. I hope this is pretty straightforward, much easier than the last policy. And we have a few more policies, which I don't think would be any use. But we can see that on this link, if you visit terracepolicybuilder.wordpress.app, we have hosted an open source version of our no-code builder. Now you do not need to remember which keys you want to fill in order to achieve a particular or check something inside your report. Yeah. I'll ask Monica to send this link to you as well later on when we do the workshop. But for now, we can move forward. Perfect. Now let's get to contributing because I know a lot of you would be interested in contributing to it. As I've already told you, it's written in Python, and you can use it on any pipeline that you have where you're deploying any Terraform code, or you can use it on the Stack platform as well. And in order to get started contributing, you can check out the repository and then uh, check out the issues. We have marked the easy issues as good first issues for low-hanging fruit. And you can also join our Slack, and you can connect with me or Rafi, who will be helping you out in order to identify what to work on. Yeah. And this is the roadmap. Here is playground. The first version is what I just showed you, where you can build the policy without writing anything. But we want to not just build, but test and debug on the playground as well. So we are working on that. We are currently in the progress of refreshing the documentation and writing the boilerplate code for the provider. And we want to write providers for HTTP API, AWS SDK, and we are also working on something called Terrace Copilot, which is you tell AI what you want to write a policy for, and it will generate the Terrace policy for you. Yeah. So in case any of this interests you, you can join us Slack and we'll help you out to start working with it. Okay. Yeah. So this is the Slack invite that I was talking about, and this is the GitHub of there. And let's move on to the workshop. Has everyone who will be doing the workshop installed it? Okay. Okay, we have a few people who can install it. I'll just keep it quick and easy. Monica, I'm sending you a link. If you can just send that to me. Or you can just visit github.com/another2computer/workshop and this is the main page. Let me know once you're reached here.
I just sent the link on WhatsApp. So, also Slack.
Is everyone on this page? We'll take one moment.
You need to click the second link. Second link.
Open what? The scanner. You want the scanner for this link or the other one? Other one. Oh.
I just got to know.
Okay. I will begin. So guys, this will be a very short workshop where we will write a very simple policy against this, and what we're going to evaluate that every request we get, we're going to make sure that it's a post request and the path starts with slash backpack. Okay. And we are going to write a tariff policy for it. This is just a very simple example of what can be done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to visit this link, tariff policy builder, and I'm going to start from scratch actually. And I'm going to select the JSON provided, and I'm going to add a value. And the operation will be get value because I want to get a JSON. And inside the attribute, I'm just going to see what attribute I want to get. I want to get the verb. So I get the verb. And in the condition type, I want to make sure that it's post. So I can say equals to. Easy, right? So far. Now for the second check, I'm going to add another one. And here we want to make sure that the path starts with that value. So I'm going to enter path here. And for that, we can use regex to make sure that it starts with that value. And with the regex, we can use that value. Yeah. And this will make sure that all the requests start with that value. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Now, this is the policy that we have built. You can click on policy JSON and you'll see something like this. Yeah. And you can copy it along with the input that is there and create two files in the same folder called input.json and policy.json. I've already done that here. If you have followed, I can just wait, but otherwise I can just proceed and show you like what and how this works. Yeah, sure. Okay, let's go back. First, let's copy the policy input.json, this part, and create a file called input.json in a folder. Yeah. Now, let's visit sales policy builder.wordpress.com. Yep. Open. Okay. Okay. So here we have to write two checks. The first check is that the verb inside the input that we just copied should be post. And the second one is the the path should always start with stack array. Yeah. So once you have written these two checks, you can go to the top and click on policy check. Yes. Yes. Yeah, we have a star at the end that says it should begin with start array, but in the end anything can be there. Yeah. So it's a rejects. Yeah. And in the document as well for our keys, I've posted a policy.json which you can directly copy as well. But I wanted to show you how we came up with that. Yeah. So you have already created input.json. You can just copy this policy.json and create another file called policy.json. Yeah. Done? Alright. So now we have a command inside that in the next step where we are actually going to use this and make sure our policy is working. We are going to copy this command and in the terminal wherever you have created that folder, you're assuming you all have installed it. Have you installed it? Okay. Okay. So in that folder, all you have to do is paste this command. There is input path, input this. This is basically telling there for the input use input.json and policy use policy.json. Very straightforward. And once you do that, you should see a result passing like this, where you see the results of individual checks that you wrote, and then you have a final result. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if this works actually, or it will just. So I'm going to change my input. I'm instead of post going to do get, and as you can see, it is showing me an error saying that get was not equal to post. That's why this policy has failed. Yeah. So have you been able to run there? Yes or no? Yes. Still not. So I'm going to wait for a few minutes. Alright, for those of you who have been following but were not able to run, you can contact me right now after the next talk and we can get that sorted. If not, you can always connect with me on LinkedIn. It's my LinkedIn, and in case you want to contribute to this, I've already told you. You can visit the repository or the platform. But yeah, that's all from my end. Thank you, everyone.
Do you have any questions so you can ask if you have any?
Please go ahead. Yes, we have a provider. No, not yet. I actually skipped the Kubernetes one because I thought it would get a little complex, but let's give you that. Okay. So here you can see the Kubernetes policy, and we are going to get an attribute from a construct which is tech containers and all the liveness probe properties inside those. So it can have multiple pods, right? So for all those pods, for all those containers, we want to check what is the property liveness flow, and we want to make sure that it contains none in that. So this is a very simple Kubernetes policy, but we do have a provider for it. Like in case you want to check your health chart against or write a policy against it. Yeah. Yes. Exactly, exactly. So you need to do that dry run and Terraform plan in order to see what resources are going to be created or deployed, and only then we can make sure that any policies are not being breached, right? So yes, we need to do that. Yeah. So how this works is you pass the output of the dry run to Terra, and Terra supports like reading that, and then you don't need to locate okay in which key would the liveness probe be. It would simplify that for you. It would automatically look under the changes or the newer deployment and extract their value for you. So that's what Terrain does. It simplifies output extraction and then writing policy. Uh, so anything that is outputted in the output dry run file, right? That is supported. Sorry? You can change, but each time you'll have to run dry run and against those changes run the policy again, right? In order to evaluate against those new changes. So Terrain cannot read the current setting. So it will only read like what you plan to deploy. Or so of course like if you are planning to evaluate like what is already deployed, you'll have to provide that to Terrain. And I'm not sure if the provider supports reading like the existing state, but yeah, if you do that in the dry run and catch it there, then it will definitely. Yeah, provider has been written in my tagline. I have written the JSON and the Terraform plan provider. Kubernetes was written by another. Yeah, that is open. Everything is open.
Yeah, you have the question?
So my question is this threshold limit. So when the organization works on cloud and all the cloud providers like GCP and Azure also provides services like to threshold or limits to for budgeting.
Right.
Then how there is a difference?
Yeah, so Terrain for each cloud provider, you need to go to that cloud provider and configure it in their own way, right? There is no standard, and it's not just about like one threshold. So they provide like permission threshold that this resource can have this permission, this resource can have this permission. IAM policy, right? But in those IAM policies, it's very black and white. That okay, either you can deploy a resource or you cannot deploy a resource. You cannot give permission based on the settings of the resource. For example, I give you the permission of deploying a EC2 instance, but I do not want to give you a permission of deploying a C6 large you to do that. I only want you to give the only want to give you the permission of deploying a micro instance. So that part is not possible on these cloud providers. What kind of resource and what settings of resource are allowed and not allowed? That is not currently supported. Custom IAM policies. Yeah, I mean you can create custom IAM policies, but then again the same problem. You'll have to create different custom IAM policies for AWS, Azure, and so on. And so on. There's no standard for it.
If I talk about if I created this policy for one suppose if you instance Hamza and we micro MCP that one, but in the majority terminology, key findings are like
Right. But the format will also be different, right?
hardly like if I talk about the application, right over here, we just have to drag down for like UI basis also. We just have to drag down what we have to do and it will also get created. So like why users are there instead of that cloud provider is then providing it.
Now that permission you can assign to a role, and then you can assign that role to a pipeline, right? So
if I create
it's
that,
all based on credentials of a user.
if I have a owner administrator,
Yeah.
I have created this policy for a group and a bunch of people are playing in the group. So that thing will be applied on the group. And individually, if I did the group member, suppose the one senior number has to be given this access because he will substantially in not. So I can just deny that individual for that person, but in production it doesn't happen. Individual will need this different kind of roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, I understand. But again, these policies are for mainly pipelines used by infrastructure as code. So either you can, of course, apply those policies in those credentials, which are then given to the pipelines to deploy these resources. But then again, then you have different credentials for each of the pipeline that you build.
Right. So like it sounds like you mentioned that as I'm using IT like Terraform in creating or already like already deployed and like imported that Terraform. Now if I want to make some changes, so I can do with that imported.
Yes. Yes. So if you import, as long as you have the Terraform code, right?
Right.
Then you can import policies.
Because it's already doing by like in different teams or different companies, it's already their infrastructure is created. Now Terraform has a capability to get imported
Yes.
already created on Azure or any cloud provider.
Right.
So now as a new member, if I'm like, capable of understanding the IT, so I can make changes in terms of code and then
Yes.
just put it back so that it can
Yeah. So Terraform, when you import and plan again, in that plan, all the existing attributes and the changed attributes, both are there. And Terrace evaluates both of them to see like even in the existing one, if there's something wrong, then the user must change it before the next deployment. Yeah. Anything else?
Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you, Arvind. Thank you so much. And we are running out of time, but okay, before going for the another talk, let's play a game. Okay, I'm gonna invite one person. Anybody, if anybody wants to come here, voluntary. You want to come here? So now, what you need to do, you need to guess what technology he's working on, and if he is working professional or a student. So you just need to guess it out. Okay? So yeah, you can just tell them your name, just name. Now you need to guess, everybody. Start. Working professional, okay, any language. If you are working on Python, that doesn't mean he is also working on Python. DevOps. Any guesses? DevOps, Python? Sorry? No, we can't. We can't. Sorry. Any from here? You just need to judge by looks.
Of course.
Yeah, by looks, guys. Sorry? Any guesses from here? DevOps. Any Java developer. Okay, any funny guesses or something from here? Let's see there. Data scientist. वगैरह नहीं है तो हो नहीं सकता है. Okay. हाँ? Sorry? Okay, now you can introduce yourself what you are doing. So we have DevOps, Python, Java, HTML. Okay, now you can introduce.
Hello. So my name is Chirag. I am an associate DevOps engineer.
Anything about you?
Yeah, I'm from Roorkee and just I have a 1 year of experience in DevOps and like Python and attending my events.
That's great, that's great. Let's give a round of applause. Thank you so much. Anyone wants to come? Okay, let me choose. Okay. You can come. No? Okay. Okay. Yeah, you can come. Yeah, wow. Yeah. Now I need more energy from you. So yeah, get ready for the guesses. So yeah, just tell your name and.
So hello all, I'm Lukin Shrivas. I'm working at A System as a SOC engineer. So this is not a technology.
Now you have to tell his hobby.
By the way, SOC is not a technology. Okay, it's my job role. So it contains lots of technologies, and you have to answer me what kind of technology you can.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. That's it, guys. Don't let.
Not at all.
Don't let. Okay.
So let me clear one thing. I'm not into development.
Any guesses? Security. From here? Sorry? Bazu? That is okay.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yes,
That's great. Yeah, now you can introduce yourself.
So currently I'm working as a software engineer as I told you. My current company is a system. Previously I worked with some companies like IBM, Aldeco, and Physics Wala, Beats for Beats. So that's it from my side.
He is the guy you need to connect. Okay? Okay, any women wants to come? Any girl? If you will not come, I'll choose. Huh? You want to come? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just tell your name, just then. Hi everyone, I'm Kritika from Gurugram. Stop. Student, machine learning engineer, DevOps. Any guesses?
Pharma marketing.
That was rude. Sorry? Front end. Content creator. Okay, that's good. That's good. Anybody from here? Proud. She is very talented. I am just giving you guesses. Front end? Flutter developer. Okay.
Machine learning.
Okay, we have Flutter developer, content creator, and machine learning engineer and DevOps. Okay, let's see what she's doing.
So currently I'm a pharmacy student, but I'm pursuing entrepreneurship. So I work with Association for Women in Business and have different kind of programs for the women entrepreneurs. Apart from that, I like exploring the software as a service side. So I have started again into that and working on certain software as a services. That's it. I like to understand about the LLMs and the CRM as a service. So yeah, that's pretty
And
much
she's
it.
working on her own startup. So she's very much talented. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, now are you ready for the next talk or not? मैं तो ready नहीं. Okay, so our next talk is by Kritika. Where is my phone? Okay, I remember your talk name. So it's attention is all you need, and it's about machine learning and a lot of things. So yeah, you will see what it is. And yeah, guys.
मैंने देखा था कैसे
इन्हें पता है.
वो लैपटॉप
Okay, hi all. नहीं मैं नहीं बोल आ रही है ना मेरी आवाज आ रही है ना मैं तेज ही बोलती हूँ थोड़ा okay so my topic is attention is all you need. My name is Pratika Parmar. Hi for having the same name. Okay, so first of all, any guesses about the topic, like what I'm going to talk about? Any guesses? Very good. Transformers. Okay, so I'll start with a brief about myself. So, who am I? I am a founding machine learning engineer at Pixel, and uh, and I tinker with models and play guitar like for my living, and that's my hobby. Okay. So, how many of you know this logo? I already knew that you must be knowing because we use it in daily life, right? I would like to have some questions like what kind of tasks you ask ChatGPT? Anyone? What? What? Yeah, problem solving, content creation, and all. Right. So, how many of you know these models also that are apart from ChatGPT? Have tried them also? Okay, great. So I think how many of you are interested see how these work actually? How many of you already know? Less hand raised, but quite good. Yeah, it will be a revision for you guys if you already know. So no problem, right? Okay. So the main thing that is behind ChatGPT, Gemini, Mistral, Claude AI is transformers, and we'll get into it. But थोड़ी सी maths, that is how neural network works. So how many of you have already took class of deep learning or machine learning? How many of you already know multiplication with addition? Multiplication addition, guys. Okay, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some inputs. Okay, these are some weights. I'm not going to get too much into it because that will bore all of most of you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the inputs with their corresponding weight. I'm going to sum them all up and add a bias to it, and then I'm going to apply something called black box, that is a activation function kind of thing that will directly act as the on or off button to the output. Okay, so like for example, if here I got 0.6 and threshold was set to 0.5 and 0.6 is greater than 0.5, so it will be 1. Okay, so it will be an on and the data will be passed on. Otherwise, if it is less, then it will be 0. With nothing will be passed on. Okay, so this is a single neuron, how a single neuron works. Okay, so before transformers, what we were introduced was with recurrent neural networks. So, any of you have any idea how recurrent neural networks work? No idea? No issues. Okay. Some of you must be hesitant. No issues. The normal. Are you guys comfortable with Hindi or not? Okay. Okay. So when we do simple neural network, what happens is we take input. We have a neuron set of neurons that acts as a neural network, and then we have an output. Right. So क्या हो रहा था? For example, if I have to train a model or train something that is sequential data, for example, time series data or textual data, that like word generation kind of thing, then it was very difficult कि हम sequence के through कुछ pass करें. So for example, मेरे को input की तरह pass करना है क्या? My name is Kritika. Okay, so with the use of recurrent neural network मैं कैसे करूँगा? Suppose there is an input, I'll pass my first. Okay, it will be passed to the neural structure that I already told. For example, this, and then whatever output we get, that will be again used when the new input will be passed. Next input will be is. Okay, understood? Kind of understood. So my was the first input. We generated some output. We passed in is again. We generated some output. We passed in Kritika again. Yeah. So this is how the loop look like, and this is how what I have already explained. First I'll pass one input. I'll get output. I'll pass second input. Get output. I'll pass second input. And this is how we'll generate the last one. Okay, so what do you think the problem can be? I've already written it, so you can also name it. So, what do you think the problem with this can be? You can also read it out loud, right? Okay, so what happens is we are passing the sequential data one at a time. What if I want to parallelize this process? This will be very time consuming, right? And when we talk about GPUs, we talk about parallelization. So it was very difficult with RNNs. How we have to decrease the time complexity. So apart from it, we also had a problem of vanishing gradient and exploding gradient, and actually just means that our loss will not be reduced; it will be lost somewhere. Okay. For example, if I talk about vanishing, like the gradient will be reduced so low that we can not be able to reach the loss, or will not be able to decrease the loss. Okay. Part of it I have already told you that this also will take the training time will be very high. Okay, so another thing that came after RNN as a solution to this was long short-term memory. So, for example, if I am having a very long sentence, I'll not remember what I wrote at the last 10th position. right? So long short-term memory kind of solved it, or you can say wholly solved it, because it not only just contained the information about the previous input, it also contained the information about the 10 previous input. Okay, so long short-term memory के साथ we have not only have the knowledge of what we have in the last word, but we also had the knowledge of what was in the last 10th word. Okay, so we kind of saved all of it. And इसमें there are majorly three gates that actually is simply nothing. कुछ नहीं, हम लोग इनपुट ले रहे हैं, यहाँ पे डाल रहे हैं, specific void function लगा रहे हैं, not going to talk about specific function अभी. Then we add and multiply, we use channel. This is called the forget gate. This is called the input. This is called output. Overall, just see how the long LSTM model is. But there was a problem with this also, because with this the complexity increased. We have had the weights and the biases. We have had the weights and biases multiple of the times, and we had to do the whole process very efficient. Okay, so it was harder to train, and obviously more computation resources were needed. Okay. Then in 2017, Google के developers ने एक paper निकाला, attention is all you need, and it actually is proving that it was all we needed. Okay, so transformers were actually introduced for the idea of machine to machine language translation. So if anyone knows what is it, I'm just checking how many of you are listening actually. Machine language translation. Yeah. So anything that is like, if you have to translate a language from a language, that is actually machine learning translation. It's machine language translation. And transformers were actually introduced for that only. For example, I have simply taken an input. I don't know what language it is, but yeah, we have a black box here kind of thing. This is the transformer which directly outputs. I am a student. Okay. So I'm going to go much more into what is that black box is. Okay, so we have kind of an encoder and decoder architecture which uses self-attention feed-forward neural network. Feed-forward is simply a neural network that I already talked about. And then in the decoder, we have self-attention, encoder, decoder, and feed-forward. So we took the input, we passed it to the encoder, that was 6, and this number was actually taken with like very experimentation on. So we passed the input to the system encoder and then to the decoder, and then we got the output. Okay. Okay. So how many of you are aware with word embeddings? Can you please? Yeah. Semantic means, yeah, right. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, right. Okay, and why we needed that?
Like you can index it very quickly. So in RAG applications you can use retrieve data.
Yeah. Yeah, right, right. Okay, that was a very good answer. Anything else? Like anyone else also has word embedding? Okay, why we actually need it? Like basics. Yeah, basic. So we need numbers. Machine like computers are on numbers, right? So that's why we needed words to be converted to numbers, and that's why we needed word embedding that actually contain some of the information about whatever the text I have given to it. It also gets the semantic similarities in between those texts. Okay, so अब मैं क्या करूँगी? I'll take the word, I'll get the word embedding from it, and then I'll pass it to the encoder model. Okay, I'm not just passing the word, I'm passing the embedding to the encoder model. Okay, can you please fill in the blanks for me? See? Yeah, right. 8 आएगा ना? English तो इतना है. It was easy, right? Okay. So the animal didn't cross the stream because it was too tired. It is referred to what? It is referred to what? Animal or stream? Animal, right? It is easy for you guys, right? Right? Okay. But what if I ask a machine for it? Will it be easy for that machine? Can it easily get key? It is referred to what? Because we cross is animal. What? Nothing, right? So for that, what we use is called self-attention. That I already explained in the encoder decoder architecture. We use self-attention, feed forward, encoder decoder attention, feed forward. Okay. So self-attention, what we do is actually we get how much a word is related to this, and actually we have a score for it. So for example, if I want to know the is how much related to that score will be, let's say 1. Okay, that can be changed. Then we have a score of how good is related to how much taste is related to and that's why we have score for everything. So for example, if you have to see how much hit is related to that word, you can see like this is the I've taken a screenshot for the architecture. जहाँ पे they actually we can see how the like layers are running, how we can see that how which word is related more to what. So we can directly see the animal his word and medicine. It is the most closest is it. Okay, so it is kind of certain. So this was the basic of self-attention. Any question? Easy होगा बहुत हमारे सर के ऊपर से जा रहे हैं. Okay, so how much time we have left? Okay. So basically for self-attention, we already know how we have a relationship between each word in a sentence, right? And how do we calculate it? Is using QKV. That QKV is query, key, and value. Okay. So for example, if I have two words that are thinking in machine, suppose x1 and x2 are the word embedding, then these are the weight, query, key, value matrices. We'll multiply those and we'll get the query key and value. Okay, and these will be used again. This will be forwarded to the feed forward neural network, and then we'll have more combinations. Okay, so यहाँ पे क्या चीज होते दिखती है? Okay, I just put two words and I calculated this vectors. Can I do it parallelized? Like, can I have parallelization here? Yes, right? Right? So, I think that was the main gist. Why transformers are always going to be ahead, always to be with us. So, are ahead of LSTM and RMS because of the parallelization. Okay, and that we can see here. We can directly use words, and with different words, we can directly, parallelizely, we can compute the query key values for it, and then we can directly pass them to the networks and have the other combinations. Okay, apart from it, the major buzzword with transformers we hear is multi-head attention, which usually is a pair of query key values for each embedding that we had, and then combining them and having a easy result. I'm not going to talk more on it. 5 minutes are left. Okay, apart from it, basically the most important thing that transformers introduce is positional embedding. So apart from having a word embedding, we also have the positional embedding. Okay, so for example, because word is this is Kritika, so this is Kritika 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm also going to have, I cannot just pass 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll have a position embedding that will be in the form of sine. Okay, sine curves. Okay, so if this is the embedding, this will be the position embedding of those, and then I will sum it up, and then we'll have an embedding with a type signal. And this is actually what is passed into the encoder. Okay, so this actually carries the position of the word in a sentence so that it can be used आगे कि जब मैं this लिख रही हूँ तो this के बाद this के आने के chances ज़्यादा हैं. Okay. So advantages already बता दिए मैंने और किसी को और कुछ advantages add करने. No issues. Okay, so we can simply use them for transformers for parallelization. Long range dependency, we can simply predict what word can come after 10 of the word and state of the art performance, and unlike RLL, learn dependent. Okay, so थोड़ा सा chat GPT का I'm going to explain हल्का सा कि how chat GPT works. So pre-training, for example, when they started with, so they started with pre-training, जहाँ पे they took data from internet and directly put it into the model and then trained the whole model. Then they use fine tuning, and for the fine tuning, what they did, they hired some people something like that, and then they did a short purpose of the data, and then fine tune the model on that. Okay, and then what we see is the auto-regressive approach in which the model tries to predict the next word. Okay, so whenever you type in ChatGPT and it tries to predict, it actually is predicting the next most probabilistic word that can be in the next line. Okay. Okay. So, but there can always be a challenge to everything. So here comes the computational cost. We can see the GPUs, we can see the NVIDIA, right? And it is always data hungry. You can never be sure that it is going to be updated. You have to keep it updated. And apart from it, kind of a solution to it is RAG, which he already talked about, in which we use some kind of database and try to get data from that, not just the LLM model. Okay, this was a short demo, but we are running short of time. Do you guys want to see how to use a model from Hugging Face? Okay, so Hugging Face is basically an open source, platform where it is like a GitHub for machine learning engineers or for machine learning practitioners, in which you can directly go pick up any model and directly fine tune it, play with it, get your results, test the model out, and you can also directly upload your own research model to it. Okay, so I have just taken a basic model, which is English translator kind of thing. This is the model. You can read more about this. I'll share the link later if you guys want it. So what I have done is simply yes, not that. Okay, so I've simply opened in the collab, did pip install transformers, okay, and then I directly imported auto tokenizer, auto model for Castle that the guy have made, and then with that I have small template which is required, and then I am inputting a text. Okay, so the text is दिख रहा है इसको? आपका नेम क्या है? आंसर क्या आएगा इसका? इंग्लिश में आंसर क्या आएगा इसका? What is your name? So model ने वो predict कर. Then I also inputted आप कैसे हैं? Then the model outputted how are you? EOS is kind of end of statement, which is kind of an error here, but it's okay. It's small. Okay, so this is how you can pick up a model and directly use the model for your personal use. Okay. The short here, short is like just about which transformers which I usually like to work on is the how to use transformer models with images also. So you can give a read to vision transformers, twin transformers, PIT or PIT models. Any question? कुछ भी चलेगा यार, इतना सारा बोला मैंने.
ये पीपीटी मिल जाएगी?
हाँ मिल जाएगी. Okay. Anything else? कुछ हाँ.
How does maintaining the desired context of the content?
Okay. So that is not a ML related question. That is actually development related kind of thing. I think there must be database and kind of like, I think they must also be caching your whatever text it have, because I can now see the memory updated icon whenever I write something. So I think there must be caching. There must be saving the database in your cookies or something like that. Because
But the context window is fixed, right? But your conversation will far beyond the context window.
yeah,
How does it know? Like, you can long before the chat.
huh,
Your context window is
huh, huh. Okay.
how does it communicate that?
So this is actually not with most of the models. So if you try Gemini, this is not what happens. Like if you write a text, it will generate an output. For example, what happened? I wrote ki, I want to write this in Python, something in Python. So it gave me. But and then I wrote in Rust. Okay. And then okay, if you want to write something in Rust, then you can follow this. And I was like, so chat GPT में that I already said word auto regressive approach. So they keep maintaining that, until and unless there is a new conversation. If the words are kind of matching or kind of pointing it to the previous conversation, they continue. Okay. Any questions? बेसिक क्वेश्चन भी पूछ सकते हो, न्यूरल नेटवर्क क्या होता है? हाँ, ओके, डेवियन के बारे में सुन रहे, नहीं तुमने सुन लिया होगा, डेवियन के सुन लिया, राइट? Yeah, so I think you cannot replace a developer, but surely you can have a more efficient developer. Right? With AI, I'm sure that your time must have. मेरा time नहीं बचता. As an ML engineer, हमारा time नहीं बचता. We have to research, and इसलिए हमें research करके नहीं देता. But yeah, as a developer, that code you have already written, I think उसमें काफी help होता है. So anything else? Okay, no issues. So you can connect with me. So, if you all don't know, she is my junior and we were in the same college and you daughter. So, yeah, super proud of you, Pratina. Thank you for the great talk. Thank you so much. Okay, are you guys ready for the quiz? That's today's one. Okay, now Arvind, please come and just set it up the wrist for you. Yeah. Okay, meanwhile, what we can do, if you have anything to share, you can. Any story about you or anything you want to share, you can. Then we will start the quiz. No one has any story? Okay, then we will go for the quiz. 1 second, 1 second. So sorry for this. Can't we stop this?
Yeah. Just scan the QR and when done, please just. कोई बात नहीं. 1.4 everyone. Guys, are you done with this? हो गया? Guys, you can also do. I think. Okay, let's wait for 50 and then we will start. Okay, let's start. I think we are good. Okay, guys, let's start. Chalo. Watch it. Which of the following is not an IANC tool? Terraform, Blooming, AWS, and CloudFormation. Just click it. You know the answer.
I'm told you about Terraform, so I don't know what I like. But Lumi is also like Terraform. transformation is from AWS. I am not an IIT, it is a policy management and action management by AWS. Next question is goals and providers thoughts. Any thoughts there?
So guys, team method.
Not in the database.
What is the role of a service provider? It reads the input and the policy files. It extracts and transforms value from given input. It processes the final expression. None of the above. It is not a
Are you able to join? Can you refresh it? I'll wait. Refresh. Yeah. All right.
guys focus. Focus. What language do you use to write civic policies? YAML, Python, JSON, SQL. Huh? Okay. It's very easy.
There is written in my very easy.
Focus, guys, focus. Which of the following is not a policy engine? OPA, AWS, Surat, Terraform. Three, two, one. Guys, next question. Please focus. Which provider would you use to check if block public access is enabled for an S3 bucket which deploy via Terraform? Terraform plan, infracost, JSON, KD. Okay, it's Terraform plan. Who's Ankit? अच्छा wow wow how many providers does Grid officially support? 3478. That's tough or not? Sixteen seconds left. Okay. And with the runner, Deepak Nishad. Deepak Nishad Sabar. Who is Ankit? You. And Deepak Nishad. You. And someone. Sabar. Okay, that's great. Now we have some goodies for you guys. So yeah. Huh? I'm proud of you. We have
But I need your
outside. But kudos to Pratham, Divansh, Maharsh, Snehal, Sam, who's Snehal? Deepak Vishwa. No, 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 you have to come. You have to come and click a photo. Yeah. Ankit, please come. This is called the friend. Yeah. Someone yeah, Ankit is Ankit and then Deepak. I was okay. Okay, just yeah. We need one photo for top three के साथ. Thank you so much, guys. Okay. Okay, guys. Did you enjoy? Okay, next time we will make you all pay. Okay, when we get a good budget. Okay. I wanted to give you all goodies, but okay, maybe next time. Okay, now who knows Code Buddha superhero? Anyone knows? कितने लोग अभी देखते हैं आपका कितना पॉपुलैरिटी है 1 2 3 4 5 okay. Okay, are you excited for the next talk? Most importantly, are you ready for the next talk? Yes. Or do you want to play a game? No? Okay, let's wait for 2 minutes. You can tell me to start, and if Pawan you are ready, we can start. Okay, let's start the session. So the next talk is by Pawan, and the topic name is Transforming Productivity: How Gen 8 AI Redefines Workflow Automation. So hope you all are ready for this talk, and this is going to be the super talk. So yeah, this is all yours.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks, everyone. Hello. So, any energy left, or you just are waiting to get some food? Depends on that because I will stretch my time based on that. If you will be saying that, okay, मजा आ रहा है, तो थोड़ा stretch कर सकते हैं, otherwise खाना रहेगा. Okay, so we will be talking about productivity and we will be talking about 10K. So, hello again. So I am Pawan. I right now work as a code guru. If someone have seen it somewhere, maybe. Otherwise, you will just explore. There is a QR code which you can scan, which will most likely open my website. It's not a typical website. There is a lot of things you can do. You can play game. You can listen to radio, things like that. Don't do it right now, but after going back, you can do that. So if you want, you can scan, and then we will start. Shall we start? AI. Okay. What's your thought about it? How many of you think that it's just a hype word?
Um,
Okay.
it's nice.
Okay. What's your thought? So AI is like everywhere, right? At least we have, yeah. Good word for advertisement. Yeah, good word for advertisement.
Yeah.
So, like, I think in last 1 year, you also don't know how many times you have heard this word.
It's like, I mean, we cannot count, I guess, right? So again, everything has two sides. One is I understand a lot of people say that, oh, it's very good. It's like the next thing, and then there are some people they just for hype. There are people creating this stuff, but what is definitely not hype is this generative AI, right? I think you all might be familiar with generative AI, directly or indirectly, right? How many of you use ChatGPT, for example? So directly, so nahi, but indirectly you are familiar. But let's say directly, if someone can explain me what is generative AI, anyone? बोल सकते हो, गलत ही होगा.
I think generative AI is based on pattern creation.
Okay. Anyone else wants to try? We'll try to make it a little bit practice like using or something. Yes.
Generative AI is just
Power by the salary. Yeah.
power. So I'm Ram.
Okay, Ram. आप बताओ आगे तो बोलना था यार. ठीक है. So prediction you are saying, right? Anyone else? Okay. कहाँ से पढ़ा? आप कुछ बोलो.
Generation model.
ठीक है. Yes.
It is a tactic to create content.
आप उधर भी थे ना? ऐसा मत लाया करो यार प्लीज. माहौल खराब कर दोगे आप लोग के. ठीक है. So generative AI is as simple as this. नहीं इससे अभी आएंगे पहले ये समझ आ रहा है. किसी ने इमेज देखा वैसे पहला वाला कोडिंग कितने लोग करते हैं? हमारे अच्छा उधर नहीं है क्योंकि इसलिए मैंने पूछा. उधर मतलब ये लगा ना उधर से ही आया उधर से वो एक और आया ना मेरे साथ. So ये वाली जो इमेज है दिस इज द ओरिजिनल इमेज. दिस इज बेसिकली अ मीम. ओके जो कि बहुत कॉमन मीम है कोडिंग कम्युनिटी में. एंड देन द सेकंड वन व्हिच यू सी इज जनरेटिव एआई, राइट? So generative AI is precisely like based on some input it generates something, right? That's it, right? LLM जिसको हम बोलते हैं, है ना? So LLM क्या होता है? कोई बता सकता है LLM क्या होता है? लार्ज लैंग्वेज मॉडल मत बोलना. ये डिस्क्लेमर है पहले. उसके अलावा क्या होता है? What is LLM? अगर किसी को एक वर्ड में अगर LLM बताना हो तो कैसे बताएगा?
Human like responses.
ये एक वर्ड है.
एक साथ बोलना.
ये मुझे नहीं पता था कि ऐसा एक वर्ड हो जाता है अगर एक साथ बोल दो पूरी लाइन को. और कोई एक वर्ड बताना है ना, थोड़ा सा तो सुन लो मेरी बात. जनरल इंटेलिजेंस. ठीक है ये एक वर्ड है. इंटेलिजेंस. what else? bucket
Bucket of data. Of data payment.
कहाँ है मतलब? और क्या होता है? डेटाबेस. तो फिर तुम एलएलएम क्यों बोल रहे हो उसको? डेटाबेस ही क्यों नहीं बोल रहे?
But वो trained है.
अच्छा. सही है. तो मैं अपना एग्जांपल मतलब मैं अपना डेफिनेशन देता हूँ. एलएलएम इन शॉर्ट अगर हम देखें एक वर्ड में दैट इज ऑटो कंप्लीट. डिफरेंट. ऑटो कंप्लीट एक ही वर्ड है. ऑटो अलग होता है, कंप्लीट अलग होता है. ठीक है. ऑटो कंप्लीट भी एक वर्ड. तो एक और एग्जांपल देखते हैं. ये वाला देखा हो, राइट? दिस इज अनदर मीम व्हिच इज काइंड ऑफ वायरल मीम कह सकते हैं. So again, this is generative AI content, right? एक और देखते हैं. इनको भी देखा होता है कभी भी नहीं देखा. So generative AI would be based on some inputs, right? What kind of inputs? कितने फॉर्मेट हो सकते हैं? Anyone? Like किस तरीके का कंटेंट हो सकता है? टोटल कितने हुए? दो. दो वाला कौन है? कहाँ लगा दो?
वीडियोस भी इमेजेस का ही वो होता है कि मतलब फ्रेम्स.
तो तीन हो गए. ठीक है. टेक्स्ट हो गया, इमेजेस एंड ऑडियो, वीडियो नहीं, वीडियो इज कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ इमेजेस लाइक फॉर्म हमारे फ्रेंड्स एंड उनके वीडियो तो फॉर्म डिजाइन होते हैं, अब तो टेक्स्ट ही हुआ बट टेक्स्ट फील हो गया ना, प्लेन चार लिखना, ठीक है, जब आएगा चार लिखना, हम तीन लिखेंगे, ठीक है, फॉर्म तुम अपना रख लो एक, बट हमारे साथ तीन ही हो रहे हैं, एक टेक्स्ट, इमेज एंड ऑडियो, एंड देन वीडियो इज बेसिकली कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ इमेजेस व्हिच हैज ऑडियो, राइट। सो अगर ये एक वीडियो होता तो कैसा होता, राइट, तो ऐसा होता, तो बेसिकली that's the voice we see but what does it, but you got the idea, right, this is generative AI in short, right। तो अगेन एक कोट है, पढ़ लो, हाँ आएगा, मजा आ गया होगा। तो हम क्यों बात करें, क्योंकि अब हम एक छोटा सा क्विज खेलते हैं, जस्ट कि थोड़ा एनर्जी आ जाए, ताकि मेरा, क्योंकि आगे बहुत कोडिंग है, तो रियल और फेक में से आपको बताना है, एक बंदा इसका आंसर नहीं दे सकता, उसको पता है वो कौन है, ठीक है। तो स्टार्ट करें, इसमें या तो एक रियल एक फेक है, या दोनों फेक है, दोनों रियल हो सकते हैं, तो आपको बताना है कौन सा क्या है, ठीक है। एक मिनट, अगर किसी को लगता है पहला वाला रियल है तो हाथ खड़े करें, अगर किसी को लगता है सेकंड रियल है तो हाथ खड़े करें, अगर किसी को लगता है दोनों रियल है तो हाथ खड़े करें,
दोनों ही फेक है,
अगर किसी को लगता है दोनों फेक है तो हाथ खड़ा करें,
फेक है, फेक है,
ठीक है। कितने लोग लगता है फर्स्ट वाला रियल है, कौन थे वो लोग, आपको लगता है, कितने लोग लगता है सेकंड वाला, वेरी गुड डिस्क्रिप्शन, मतलब मोटा है तो वो जनरेटिव है, गुड वन, एक उधर से भी ऐसा इसमें लाइट है वो है, मतलब रियल। तो और कोई इसके अलावा मतलब कोई और टिप्पणी करना चाहेगा, कुछ और,
फेक है,
पहला वाला फेक क्यों लग रहा है, किसको लग रहा है,
इट्स वेरी क्लियर,
ज्यादा क्लियर, ये दिक्कत है कि ज्यादा क्लियर, और क्या
उसके 6 पैर है, वो देखो लास्ट में पैर आ
तो कितने होने चाहिए थे, हाँ मतलब ठीक है, अपना अपना गैस
these are not imaginary, मतलब not sorry clear,
ठीक है। तो कोई मुझे बता सकता है कि वो एक आंसर जो भी बोल रहा है वो कुछ कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ बोल रहा है, जो भी आंसर, हाँ आप बताओ।
जो फर्स्ट वाला है ना, उसमें जो मतलब मैं फोटोग्राफी कॉन्टेक्स्ट से बताऊं तो उसकी शैडोज है ना बहुत ही सॉफ्ट है, तो ऑब्वियसली कितने सॉफ्ट शैडोज जनरेट होंगी, और सेकंड वाला बट इतना जो शैडोज और जो लाइट पड़ रही है ना उतनी सॉफ्ट नहीं, बट सेकंड में उतनी वो स्कैटर हो रही है ऑल ओवर, मतलब ज्यादा कोई ज्यादा रियलिस्टिक अप्रोच,
ठीक है, तो लास्ट टाइम नहीं आते, पहला वाला फेक है, सेकंड वाला रियल है, ठीक है। वो फोटोग्राफर की दृष्टि से वो देख चुका है, आर्गुमेंट ही नहीं बचे ज्यादा, बट एक सिंपल सा जो फैक्ट है वो ये है कि जो जनरेटिव एआई वाली इमेजेस होती हैं, एज ऑफ टुडे अगेन दिस इज चेंजिंग रैपिडली, बट उसमें पैटर्न जो होते हैं ना बनाना, वो कॉम्प्लेक्स पैटर्न थोड़े मुश्किल होते हैं, ठीक है। अगर आप सेकंड वाला देखोगे तो जो बॉडी पे जो ब्लैक वाले वो है, ठीक है, दोस आर मोर कॉम्प्लेक्स बेसिकली, व्हिच इज नॉट वेरी इजी टू जनरेट बाय एनी जनरेटिव एआई एलएलएम, राइट। एंड द फर्स्ट वन इज मोर लाइक वो ज्यादा इजी है और वो कनेक्टेड भी नहीं है, बिकॉज़ दोस डॉट्स आर लाइक नॉट लाइक दैट, बट ऐसे जज नहीं करते हैं। नेक्स्ट पिक्चर पे आते हैं, इसमें दोबारा सेम मेरा एंटायर चला लग रहा है, ठीक है, बट कौन सा फेक है, फर्स्ट वाला फेक, कितना लोगों को लगता है सेकंड वाला फेक है, हाँ वो पे आएंगे अभी लोग, कितने लोगों को लगता है चलो दोनों फेक है, कितने लोगों को कोई ओपिनियन नहीं है, इसको बोलता है कोई मतलब है ही नहीं, ठीक है जो है तो है, फर्स्ट वाला कितने लोगों को लगता है रियल? किस बेसिस पे लगता है? सेकंड वाला कितने लोगों को लगता है रियल? सेकंड वाला कितना लगता है रियल? लगता है क्या मतलब?
वही आपका पुराना पिछला कॉन्सेप्ट
डिटेल इसमें कहाँ पे आ रहा है?
पानी देखो नीचे वेव्स देखो
वेव्स
पीछे वो देखो स्मोक देखो खिड़कियां भी दिख रही
सही है, सही है, सही है। कितने लोग लगता है दोनों फेक है या दोनों रियल? ठीक है, ठीक है, सब्सटेंस खत्म। पहला वाला फेक है, दूसरा वाला रियल। पहला वाला क्योंकि रियल होने से पता है कौन सी शिप है? ठीक है, पहले वाले में तो वो पिक्चर भी नहीं आती भाई इतनी क्वालिटी की उस टाइम। ठीक है, बट द मेन थिंग कि वो जो बीच वाला जो पार्ट आप देख रहे हो, अगर आप दोनों को कंपेयर करोगे तो आपको क्लियरली आइडिया लग जाएगा कि दैट इज लाइक मच मोर अननेचुरल और वो एक पैटर्न फॉलो नहीं कर रहा है, बहुत रैंडम सा है, और ये वाला है प्रॉपर है। ठीक है, और अगेन वो वेव्स का किसी ने बोला था, आपने बोला था, दैट इज आल्सो वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट पॉइंट है। ठीक है, थर्ड पे मूव करें या खत्म करें इसको? ये बताओ जरा, कौन सा रियल है कौन सा फेक है? सारे रियल सारे फेक है। पहला रियल है तो कौन कौन बोलता है?
फर्स्ट इज रियल,
सेकंड इज रियल है कितने लोग बोलते हैं? दोनों रियल है कितने लोग बोलते हैं? और दोनों फेक है? ये श्योरिटी है कि रियल है, फेक का तो कोई चांस नहीं है। कितने लोग लगता है फर्स्ट फेक है? क्यों? सबने तो तुमने अकेले क्यों बोला? लगाना पड़ेगा परमुटेशन कॉम्बिनेशन बहुत सही है। कितने लोगों को लगता है कि सेकंड वाला मतलब फेक है? आपका भी यही होगा? पिछला बार भी फेक था, सेकंड वाला ठीक है? क्या है बताओ रीजन? वैलिड पॉइंट पकड़ लिया गया। फर्स्ट रियल है, सेकंड फेक है। जो चौथा वाला जो आप देख रहे हो, जो पर्सन है उसकी आंखों को भी देखो और उसके हाथों को भी, जो पेन पकड़ा हुआ, you will get the idea. First is real, but tough है ना? चलो एक और ये होता है। Basically, we are going into that zone जहाँ पे पता चल रहा है कि real और fake का identification करना is very tough, right? इसमें तो बहुत ज़्यादा tough है, but still वोट ले लेते हैं। फर्स्ट वाला रियल है ऐसा कितने लोगों को लगता है? लोग हैं। सेकंड वाला रियल है ऐसा कितने लोगों को लगता है? मैं बताया था एक रियल है एक फेक है, दोनों रियल दोनों फेक वाला समझती नहीं। इसमें नहीं फर्स्ट वाले हाथ उठाए जो रियल मानते हैं फर्स्ट, और जो सेकंड को मानते रियल। क्या कर रहे हैं? मतलब वो रियल है ऐसा बोल रहे हो? वैलिड पॉइंट। और सेकंड रियल है कितने लोगों को लगता है? फर्स्ट रियल है ये कितने लोगों को लगता है? कोई अपना वोट चेंज करना चाहता है? ठीक है, मेजोरिटी के साथ जाते हैं। फर्स्ट रियल है और सेकंड फेक है। ठीक है, तो एक किसी ने पीछे रिफ्लेक्शन वाला वो जो बोला था कि भाई ऐसा कोई जरूरी नहीं है कि रिफ्लेक्शन है तो रियल है। ठीक है, इसका मेन आइडेंटिफिकेशन है वो लीव से होगा जनरली देखोगे। ठीक है, ठीक है, वो भी एक बार तो आप देख सकते हो कि है नीचे वाला तो बहुत ही ज्यादा ही नाटकीय रूपांतरण हुआ है उसका। ठीक है, बट फर्स्ट वाले में लीव्स भी आपको वो दिखती है, विजिबिलिटी भी दिखेगी, क्लैरिटी भी दिखेगी और डिफरेंट वेरिएशंस भी दिखेंगे। जो जब जनरेटिव एआई करेगा तो वो सेम ही उसमें करेगा। ठीक है, एक और है तो देख वैसे तो एक और इसके बाद ही है, ये थोड़ा फटाफट करते हैं। कौन सा है मुझे बताओ? फर्स्ट वाला फेक है कि रियल है? फर्स्ट वाला रियल। फर्स्ट रियल मैं नहीं मतलब तुम पूछो सेकंड रियल एक ही बंदा है ना तो मैं एक बंदे से पूछ ही सकता हूँ सेकंड क्यों रियल लग रहा है क्या ही है इंट्यूशन तो दिखने में अच्छा है हाँ दिखने में अच्छा है तब तो नहीं होगा इंस्टाग्राम पे देखा ही होगा तो फर्स्ट रियल है रीजन बहुत सिंपल सा है कि जनरली ये क्या लॉजिक है अगर आप एक जगह मैं तो नहीं बोलने वाला था बिल्कुल ब्राइट ब्राइट से क्या लेना है वाला पार्ट बहुत ज्यादा ब्राइट है अगर आप उस पर फोकस करोगे तो बाकी एरिया में इतनी ज्यादा दैट्स अ वैलिड पॉइंट सेकंड चीज ये है कि जो अगर बेसिक का आप जो वो देखो ठीक है द कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी ऑफ इट राइट द वे इट इज शोन दैट इज मोर रियल रादर देन दिस आपको ऐसे भी दिखेगा ही नहीं यू विल सी द इसरो का भी जब वो लॉन्च हुआ था ना वो जाके देखो वीडियो ठीक है दे डोंट लुक लाइक दिस बट रादर दिस एंड ये वाला शेप एक्चुअली जनरेटिव एआई के लिए बहुत मुश्किल है वो इजी है वन मोर ये हांगकांग सिटी है बाय द वे मोनिका हांगकांग एरिया सुनने बताओ कौन सा गली कौन सा गली नहीं यार मोनिका को बोलने देते हैं ठीक है ये होस्ट है ना
second one is
वन वर्ड बेसिस
lightning and water.
लाइटनिंग का मतलब कैसे
हाँ लाइटनिंग उसका बेटर है ना मतलब मुझे तो ऐसा दिखा था वो
बेटर भी हो सकता है
हाँ नहीं
ठीक है और दूसरा और क्या
एंड
वेदर
नहीं वेदर था वेदर भी ऐसे ही था
कितने लोगों को लगता है रियल
वहाँ पे लाइटनिंग है ना एग्जैक्ट है जैसे हमने वहाँ पे देखी
गुड डिस्क्रिप्शन रंग बिरंगे और रंग बिरंगे
नहीं फीका फीका
ठीक है एनीवन एल्स वांट टू से समथिंग
उसमें डिटेल्स काफी सॉफ्ट है
गुड पॉइंट तो पहला फेक है सेकंड रियल है ठीक है बहुत सारे पॉइंटर्स हैं इसमें
चलो प्रूव हो गया मैं
से लेके बिल्डिंग्स को अगर कोई देखेगा ध्यान से हाँ तो बहुत ही इजीली आइडेंटिफाई हो जाएगा बट ठीक है इतना जनरेटिव है इस लेवल पहुंच गया कि कुछ टाइम बाद लोग नहीं कर पाओगे लास्ट स्टेज ये पता है क्या है अरोड़ा क्या बोल दिया
और
कौन सा बताओ फर्स्ट के साथ कितने लोग हैं जो बोलते हैं फर्स्ट रियल और बाकी
ब्लैक
मतलब इसमें कोई ऐसा पैसे लग रहे हैं इसमें कि क्या लग रहा है कि क्या हमारे लीग से बाहर है ऐसा दोनों फेक है ऐसा कौन कोई है ऐसा इसको लगाओ दोनों रियल है ऐसा क्यों लग रहा है दोनों रियल है जबकि मैं बोल दूं मैं एक रियल एक फेक है ऐसा देख रखिए ठीक है बताओ फर्स्ट रियल है
फर्स्ट रियल
कर गए एक्चुअली फर्स्ट रियल है सेकंड फेक है क्योंकि अगर आप ऐसे उसके रिफ्लेक्शन भी देखोगे तो वो उसमें मैच होता है और डिटेलिंग की ज्यादा फर्स्ट में ही है सेकंड में नहीं ओके हो गया सेशन अब स्टार्ट हुआ भूख लगी है ज्यादा की वजह से बट थोड़ा ब्रेक लो स्टार्ट करें ठीक है प्रोजेक्ट आइडियाज कितने लोगों ने यहाँ पे सुना एनीवन तो बीएस कोड यूज किया था ठीक है सो प्रोजेक्ट आइडियाज इज बेसिकली बीएस कोड ऑन क्लाउड okay now there are good advantages I try to like rush a little bit so that कि आपका भी टास्क पूरा हो जाए तो बाहर है और मेरा भी काम हो जाए पूरा जो यहाँ है तो जेमिनाई है इनबिल्ट जैसे आपने देखा वीएस कोड में गिटहब को पायलट आता है राइट वैसे जेमिनाई मिलता है आईडीएक्स में व्हिच इज फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट अगेन एज ऑफ नाउ गिटहब इंपोर्ट कर सकते हो आप डायरेक्टली डिप्लॉय कर सकते हो वर्कस्पेस से प्रोजेक्ट क्रिएशन कर सकते हो टेम्पलेट से एंड्रॉइड और वेब एमुलेटर आपको मिल जाता है क्लाउड में, एंड देन एक्सटेंशन है. नाउ व्हाट आई फील इज दैट VS Code will still be there, right? But why cloud is important? The only reason I feel is that we are moving to cloud, if you see, right? For everything, right? कुछ साल पहले अगर आपको नॉर्मल एंड्रॉइड ऐप डेवलपमेंट करनी होती थी, यू नो दैट what kind of system you require, right? It's very heavy resource, right? लाइक ऐसा कोई अगर आप मान लो 2 GB रैम का एक लैपटॉप ले आओगे और आप सोचो कि उस पे एंड्रॉइड ऐप डेवलपमेंट कर लेंगे, तो इट इज वेरी वेरी डिफिकल्ट. आप बैठे ही रह जाओगे पूरे दिन, तो तुम्हें निकल जाएंगे. अभी कितने लोग ऐसे जिनके फोन की रैम ज्यादा है लैपटॉप से? हाँ, कोई बात नहीं. Let's face the reality. फोन की रैम आई थिंक 8 GB तो होगी सकती है अगर आपने अभी रिसेंटली फोन लिया हो 1-2 साल, राइट? बट वो अभी लैपटॉप की रैम अब जाके 8 GB स्टैंडर्ड हुई है, टू बी ऑनेस्ट, राइट? विच इज वेरी बैड एक्चुअली अगर देखा जाए उस पर्सपेक्टिव से, बिकॉज लैपटॉप्स आर जनरली मेड फॉर प्रोडक्टिविटी. मतलब उसका जो काम करना है का तो है भी नहीं, तो बट मोबाइल पे हमारे पास ज्यादा है. सो दैट मीन्स कि जो हमारी जो मशीन्स की लिमिटेशंस है दे आर स्टिल देयर, राइट? So that's why we need cloud at some point of time. And again, now everyone like knows that सबकी photos Google photos या कहीं पे होती है, right? No one wants to carry things locally anywhere because chances की होने के chances भी, ठीक है, या अगर आपका let's say memory card खराब हो जाए, कुछ भी हो जाए. So cloud is definitely becoming there, and it's coming faster than what we expected in terms of bandwidth. Also, if you see आज की डेट में I think हर किसी के पास decent internet है, especially in India. And I don't know how many of you know, but India has a better internet connectivity than many other good countries, thanks to Jio. But reality is that, है ना, why India का internet भी बहुत cheap है as compared to any other country, ठीक है? So we are there. Cloud is becoming mainstream, and now there are some other good parts as well. And it uses something called Nix OS. किसी ने सुना है? Linux सुना होगा? Nix एक OS है जो ये क्लाउड बेस्ड आईडी के लिए बनाया गया है स्पेसिफिकली. इसमें क्या होता है, यू कैन हैव लाइक योर सेट ऑफ लाइक पैकेजेस व्हिच यू वांट टू यूज, और पैकेजेस की एक डायरेक्टरी होती है, जैसे npm की अगर किसी ने डायरेक्टरी देखी हो या पब पे देखी हो या कुछ भी ऐसा, तो सिमिलरली Nix की भी होती है. एंड यू कैन आइडेंटिफाई दोस पैकेजेस, और इसमें एक फाइल होती है dev.nix, उसके अंदर जाके आप उस पैकेज स्पेसिफाई कर दोगे. एंड योर दिस टर्मिनल, बेसिकली हम कैसे कोई पैकेज इंस्टॉल करते हैं, टर्मिनल में जाते हैं, npm install something, वो सब आपको नहीं करना पड़ेगा. That all will be there, and you can easily change the OS version by just changing one text in the Nix file. So it's very good. Like this is a very good idea of like having a different OS specific for this ID, which is one good part. Then hot reload, hot restart, full reload, वो आपको functionality मिलती है. लाइट हाउस इनबिल्ट सपोर्ट मिलता है. जेमिनी तो है, इनडायरेक्टली आप बहुत सारी चीजें वन क्लिक में कर सकते हो. आपको क्लाउड रन पे डिप्लॉय करना है, फायरबेस पे करना है, आपको गूगल मैप्स इंटीग्रेशन करना है, जेमिनी का डायरेक्ट आपको एपीआई की चाहिए, या डायरेक्टली गूगल एआई स्टूडियो से कनेक्ट करना है. So most of the Google services are directly connected with this, which is a good part. But then my favorite is कि you can try Android and web emulator, right? iOS भी था, but I think उन्होंने disable कर दिया होगा for some reason अभी. And then you can share web links also, which is again an experimental feature which is coming. So it's a good thing to try and know. मैं इसको यूज कर रहा हूँ, डेमो में भी आपको थोड़ी देर में दिखाऊंगा, अगर आपको इंटरेस्ट होगा तो रुक सकते हो, अदरवाइज बाहर आपका मिशन वेट कर रहा है. इसको कोई जानता है क्या है? बुज्जी. तो बुज्जी, इसका नाम बुज्जी, इसका नहीं एक्चुअली, वो गाड़ी का नाम, मतलब इसका नाम है, सॉरी, एक गाड़ी है बेसिकली. वो गाड़ी एक्चुअली रियल वर्ल्ड कॉन्सेप्ट पे बताया था पीछे भी. तो महिंद्रा और एक कंपनी है जयम मोटर्स करके, कोयम्बतूर बेस्ड, जिन्होंने वो बनाया था रियल वर्ल्ड कॉन्सेप्ट, और जिसको कल की मूवी में यूज किया गया है, ठीक है. So this is what we are making today. This is AI based. अगर आपने मूवी देखी है तो this is actually AI based voice control system, ठीक है, which is very much real in today also, है. We have everything. किसी ने voice GPT यूज किया या Gemini Live यूज किया होगा, right? या Google असिस्टेंट की बेसिकली जेमिनी लाइक उसका ही एक अपग्रेडेड वर्जन बोल सकते हैं, तो फ्री है जैसे, ठीक है. So all of these are going to this direction only, and this is already possible today, right? And this is what we are trying to make, and with Gen AI actually we can do it very easily. और बहुत सारी कंपनीज हैं जो ऑलरेडी अपने अपने पर्टिकुलर प्रोडक्ट के लिए भी ये चीज बना रही हैं. So this is where things are interesting. Now Firebase Jenkins comes into the picture. So it's another framework. किसी ने यहाँ पे LLM पे काम किया है, just to get some idea. या चैट जीपीटी की एपीआई यूज की हो, ऐसा कुछ किया हो, या जेमिनी एपीआई यूज की हो, राइट? तो अगर आपको करनी होगी तो शायद ये यूजफुल होगा. सो जेनकिन द गुड पार्ट इज कि इसके अंदर आप मल्टीपल मॉडल यूज कर सकते हो. तो एज यू नो दैट हर मॉडल में कुछ कुछ खामियां हैं, राइट? कुछ चीजों के लिए कोई मॉडल बहुत अच्छा है, कुछ चीजों के लिए कोई मॉडल उतना अच्छा नहीं है, राइट? फॉर एग्जांपल क्लाउडी इज वेरी गुड फॉर कोडिंग स्पेसिफिक नीड्स, और अगर जनरल आपको एडवाइस दिए तो आई थिंक GPT and Gemini works better. Okay. So if let's say you want to use multiple models, or let's say you have a local model and you want to use it, you can use it. You can use it with Jenkins. इसको किसी को कोई जानता है? और कोई जानता है? कैप्टन जोर्ड. जानते हो? तुम भी देते हो? नहीं, मैं पूछा मैंने. कैप्टन जोर्ड कौन है बताओ एक बार.
कैप्टन जोर्ड वो बेसिकली वो बंदा है जिसने सुपरमैन के फादर को मारा.
समझे कितनी यूजफुल इंफॉर्मेशन थी. सो अगर आपने कभी डीसी कॉमिक्स फॉलो किया है, बैटमैन, सुपरमैन, फ्लैश, जस्टिस लीग, तो इसका एक कैरेक्टर है. बट ये यहाँ पे क्यों आया, उसका एक रीजन है. जेनकिट में जब हम स्कीमा लिखते हैं इसको जॉड बोलते हैं, ठीक है? तो हमें कुछ याद रखने के लिए चाहिए होता है, क्योंकि नया नाम था, तो जॉड स्कीमा यूज होता है. अब तुम्हें भी याद रहेगा, आई नो. तो बेसिकली जब आप अगर आपने एलएलएम के साथ कभी प्ले किया है तो यू नो कि आप अगर चैट जीपीटी से भी एक क्वेश्चन बार बार पूछोगे, हर बार आपको अलग आंसर मिलेगा. मतलब आंसर मे बी सेम ही हो, बट थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस होगा उसके अंदर, राइट? तो हमें ये पता है कि आउटपुट कैन वरी, राइट? सो वी नीड समथिंग जिससे हमारा इनपुट और आउटपुट वैसा ही हो जैसा हमको चाहिए, है ना? हमेशा सेम हो, राइट? या फॉर्मेट हमेशा सेम हो. तो उसके लिए हमें एक स्कीमा डिफाइन करना पड़ेगा, जिसके लिए जेनकिट यूज करता है जॉड स्कीमा, राइट? वी विल सी. तो ऐसा कुछ स्कीमा दिखता है. कितने लोगों को दिख रहा है या किसी को नहीं दिख रहा तो बताओ. उतना शायद क्लियर नहीं दिख रहा होगा, और डेमो में शायद दिख जाएगा. सो एक स्कीमा बना सकते हो आप, जिसमें आप बताओगे, जैसे आपने क्लास बनाई है कभी? कोई ऐसा मेरा दोस्त जिसके हेलो वर्ल्ड में 4-5 हजार आते हो? मेरा है बहुत दोस्त. मैं यहाँ पे भी ऐसा एक दोस्त ढूंढ रहा हूँ, तो उसको शायद क्लास का ना पता हो, बट क्लास पता है सब. तो क्लास में हम ऐसी एक वेरिएबल डालते हैं, उसका टाइप देते हैं कि वो इंटीजर है, स्ट्रिंग है, क्या है, ठीक है? नेम, एज, ये वो. कैन यूज गोलैंग आल्सो. सुपरमैन आ गया. सो अगर आप डॉट स्कीमा यूज कर रहे हो तो आपके पास सेम ही वही मैकेनिज्म है, इसमें ऊपर से वैलिडेशन भी आप लगा सकते हो. इन शॉर्ट यही. प्लस इट सपोर्ट्स मल्टी मॉडल यू अंडरस्टैंड. इसका मतलब है कि इट्स नॉट लिमिटेड टू टेक्स्ट ओनली, राइट? यू कैन यूज अदर फॉर्मेट्स एज वेल. मीडिया वगैरह आप यूज कर सकते हो. एंड इसके अंदर आप इनबिल्ट टूल्स यूज कर सकते हो. टूल्स कैन बी एनी सॉर्ट ऑफ प्रोग्राम्स व्हिच कैन वर्क एज अ टूल. So I will show you as an example क्या होता है. For example आप एक रेस्टोरेंट के बेस पे कुछ मेन्यू बना रहे हो, ठीक है? And you want to do some analysis on some, let's say, food. Then you can make a tool which can calculate the nutrition of food. That is more like a tool, ठीक है? Prompt management करने के लिए there is something called dot prompt. So prompt can become very like in terms of clarity also you won't get very good idea कि prompts में हो क्या रहा है. So prompt should be separated from your general code, let's say. One thing is that. Plus दूसरा क्या है कि prompt को organize करने का there is no proper format as of now. And then prompts किसी ने लिखे हैं अगर API करते वक्त उसको पता है कि it can go to like good level, right? ऐसा नहीं होता जैसे हम normal GPT पे लिखते हैं. That is not a sufficient prompt. Prompt engineering अपने आप में एक बहुत बड़ा subject है, ठीक है? It's a job, ठीक है? So prompt is a थिंक इसके बारे में कभी और डिस्कस करेंगे, बट देन सो उसको मैनेज करने के लिए देयर इज समथिंग कॉल्ड डॉट प्रॉम्प्ट एंड यू कैन रन योर फ्लोज लोकली. अगर हम ये वीडियो देखें जो नहीं लोड हो रही है, अभी भी नहीं हो रही है, नहीं देखते हैं. मैं डेमो में दिखा. तो एक चीज होती है जब आप कोई भी इसके अंदर एक प्रॉम्प्ट रन करोगे तो देयर इज समथिंग कॉल्ड ड्यू बेसिस. जिस बेस को देख के आपको आइडिया लग जाएगा कि क्या क्या एग्जैक्टली बिहाइंड द सीन्स हुआ, राइट. कितना टाइम लगा आपके एक मॉडल को रिस्पांस देने में, एंड जो भी ड्यूरेशन था, जो भी चीजें हुई बिहाइंड द सीन, क्या इनपुट एक्चुअली में गया, क्या आउटपुट मिला, वो आपको पता चलेगा. जैसे अभी आप चैट जीपीटी को कुछ पूछते हो, आपके पास एक आंसर आता है, बट यू डोंट नो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग बिहाइंड द सीन, राइट. What exactly was sent and what exactly was received is different from what you see, right. तो वो सारी चीजें आप देख सकते हो. अगेन वो डेमो से पता चलेगा. ये वाला लोड हो गया है, ये देख लेते हैं. ओपन एंड एक्सटेंसिबल बेसिकली क्या है, आप इसके अंदर अपने मॉडल्स डाल सकते हो. एज आई सेड, यू कैन एंटायरली कस्टमाइज इट. द गुड पार्ट अबाउट जेनकिट इज दैट इट इज एंटायरली लोकल. लोकल होस्ट समझते हो? किसको नहीं पता लोकल होस्ट क्या होता है? नहीं, ऐसा हो सकता है. कोई वैसी वाली बात नहीं पता, कोई बात नहीं, सबको पता है. तो यू कैन रन इट लोकली. अगर आपने अभी तक कोई भी टूल यूज किया है तो आपको उनकी वेबसाइट पे जाना पड़ता है, and you use it from there, which has its own concerns, right. So and it is not like you can change anything there because it's their tool, right. So the good part about Jenkit is you can entirely customize it as per your need, and this will be running locally. Plus you can use any number of models. Let's say you can use Gemini, you can use Vertex AI, you can use let's say कुछ और Google AI का कोई और मॉडल है वो यूज कर सकते हो. You can use Olama, ठीक है. और अगर आपका कोई लोकल मॉडल भी है तो आप ओलामा के साथ यूज कर सकते हो उसको. एंड अगेन यू कैन कस्टमाइज इट फर्दर. एंड अगेन दिस इज बिल्ड फॉर प्रोडक्शन, सो दैट मींस कि इट कम्स विद ऑल द नेसेसिटी फीचर जिसके थ्रू आप प्रोडक्शन को डायरेक्टली डिप्लॉय कर सकते हो. वन ऑफ देम कैन बी क्लाउड फंक्शंस एंड ऑब्वियसली हैंडल सिक्योरिटी एंड ऑल दिस मैकेनिज्म. अगर आपको फायरबेस कितने लोग ने यूज किया है? तो अगर आपको Firebase authentication यूज करना है या Google authentication यूज करना है, you can easily use it. Even if you haven't used it or you use something else, you can incorporate that also. And then it has integration with all this, obviously. कैसे start होगा? These are some of the commands which you can directly use. First is to install Jenkit. npm पे किसी ने काम किया यहाँ पे, मतलब Node.js की कोई ऐप बनाई होगा, नहीं भी बनाई है तो it's very easy to get started. पहले जेनकिट को इंस्टॉल करेंगे. किसी को डायरेक्टरी बनाने आती है? mkdir मैं मतलब पूछ रहा हूँ. तो वो बनाई हमने. सीडी करना आता है? सीडी मतलब समझते हो? गुड. तो सीडी किया है. काफी टफ है, आई नो, बट ट्रस्ट मी, once you start using it you get used to it. पहले डायरेक्टरी बनाना है, फिर उसके अंदर जाना है. उसके बाद npm init y क्या करता है, एक सैंपल एक तरह का एक प्रोजेक्ट का बस एक इनिशियल आपको वो देता है. उसके अंदर एक ही फाइल होती है जनरली package.json, जिसके अंदर आप अपनी डिपेंडेंसी डिफाइन करते हो एंड देन यू कैन क्रिएट फोल्डर. एंड उसके बाद हमें Firebase इंस्टॉल करना है. इंसर्ट करने के लिए हमें लिखना है jenkit init and that will like give you a basic running sample of jenkit, जिसमें एक फ्लो हो सकता है, वर्क फ्लो. and then you will say jenkit start, it will start your server on local host, ठीक है. और पूरी वो jenkit की फंक्शनैलिटी लोकली आपको मिलेगी. एंड लास्ट में गूगल का की आपको देना पड़ेगा. जैसे आप जो भी मॉडल यूज कर रहे हो जहां से भी, अगर आप ओपन एआई यूज कर रहे होगे तो भी आपको एपीआई की लगेगी. एपीआई की कितने लोग यहाँ नहीं समझते? एपीआई कितने लोग नहीं समझते? नहीं समझते क्यों? अभी तुम कह रहे कोडिंग आते है तुम्हें? एपीआई की पासवर्ड है, ठीक है. पासवर्ड की कोई चीज एक्सेस करने के लिए, ठीक है, तो वो वाला पासवर्ड है. बाकी गूगल, ठीक है, व्हाट इज एपीआई, हाउ इट वर्क्स, व्हाट इज एपीआई की, ये कुछ प्रॉम्प्ट्स है जो तुम्हें डालना है, ठीक. तो ये आइडिया लग गया। अब AI workflows क्या होते हैं? Basically, you can have multiple workflows. Like you want to hit one model to get some response. Using that response, you want to hit some other model, and then using that response, you want to hit some other model. ऐसे स्क्रिप्ट लिखवाना। आपने एक सब्जेक्ट दिया, वो स्क्रिप्ट आया, ये स्क्रिप्ट आपने पास किया लेट्स से किसी और मॉडल को, जो कि लेट्स से मिड जर्नी का है या कहीं और का है, उसने उसके लिए थंबनेल जनरेट कर दिया। फिर आपने ये दोनों इन्फॉर्मेशन दी सोरा या ऐसे कोई मॉडल को जो अपकमिंग मॉडल्स है, या रनवे को दी जिसने उसके ऊपर वीडियो बना दिया, और फिर आपने 11 लैब्स को दिया जिसने उसके ऊपर ऑडियो बना दिया, ठीक है। एंड फिर आपने पूरा उसको इकट्ठा करके अपना वीडियो प्रिपेयर कर लिया। तो वर्कफ्लोज आप बना सकते हो, अनलिमिटेड वर्कफ्लोज यू कैन क्रिएट। अब कंटेंट कैसे क्रिएट होता है? सबसे पहले आपको यहाँ पे प्लगइन स्पेसिफाई करना होता है। जैसे वर्टेक्स एआई यूज कर रहे हो तो वर्टेक्स एआई, गूगल एआई, वो भी कोमा करके ऐड करते जाओगे। आई थिंक ये नोड.जेएस पे अगर जिसने काम किया हो फैमिलियर होगा इस सिंटैक्स के साथ, या टेलविंड वगैरह अगर आपने यूज किया है तो। और जनरेट ऐसे करते हैं कंटेंट, ऐसे नॉर्मली आप मॉडल स्पेसिफाई करते हो, प्रॉम्प्ट डालते हो, राइट। बट आपको ये भी करने की जरूरत नहीं होगी, उसके लिए डॉट प्रॉम्प्ट पे आएंगे हम। सो स्ट्रीम कर सकते हो आप रिस्पॉन्स, जैसे चैट जीपीटी 1 by 1 आता है कैरेक्टर, राइट। तो दैट इज आल्सो यू कैन डू, अदरवाइज यू कैन डायरेक्टली गेट द रिस्पॉन्स। फ्लोज क्या होते हैं? बेसिकली यू कैन डिफाइन सम फ्लोज जो कि वर्कफ्लो का ही पार्ट है। सो यू कैन हैव मल्टीपल फ्लोज, या एक फ्लो के अंदर दूसरे फ्लो, तो इट्स अप टू यू। जैसे एक मेन्यू सेगमेंट फ्लो मैं सीधा डेमो दिखाऊंगा, और you can run those flows explicitly also, and then these flows you can deploy as cloud function. Cloud function यहाँ कितने लोगों को पता है? So some functions, basically the only job of those functions to execute certain set of right instruction, ठीक है। and those functions are basically, let's say कि आपकी एक API है, उसको आप ऐसे cloud function यूज कर सकते हो, and what will happen, these cloud functions can be directly consumed as REST API. REST API कितने लोगों को नहीं पता क्या होता है? रेस्ट आराम, रेस्ट पता है? सच में नहीं पता, बता दो रेस्ट एपीआई नहीं पता है। जो कम्युनिकेशन होता है, ठीक है, उसके लिए हम फॉर्मेट कौन सा यूज करते हैं? मैसेजिंग फॉर्मेट रेस्ट एपीआई में जनरली, जैसा बाकी लोग बोल रहे हैं पता नहीं रेस्ट एपीआई अभी, बट रेस्ट एपीआई बना सकते हैं। इन शॉर्ट कहने का मतलब ये है, अगर ये सब जानना हो तो पूछ सकते हो। एंड देन एज आई सेड क्लाउड फंक्शन की तरह डिप्लॉय कर सकते हैं, and also as an express JS also you can deploy like as your own server if you want. You don't want to deploy as a cloud function to Firebase or anything else. ठीक है, डेमो पे चलते हैं। इसकी क्लाइंट एसडीकेस भी है, फ्लटर के लिए भी है, स्विफ्ट के लिए भी है, एंड्रॉइड के लिए भी है, और भी आ ही जाएंगे कुछ। एंड अगर आपको होस्ट करना हो तो Firebase ऐप होस्टिंग यूज कर सकते हो इनिशियली, बिकॉज आई थिंक इट्स फ्री फॉर अ वेरी गुड लिमिट। और वर्सल वगैरह अगर आपने कभी यूज किया है तो यू कैन यूज दैट एज वेल, ठीक है। तो एक कोड है, इसके बाद मैं डेमो दिखाऊंगा कि ये अगेन मेरा शुरू का पॉइंट था कि बहुत लोगों को लगता है कि एआई हाइप है, एंड लॉट ऑफ पीपल विल से कि एआई विल रिप्लेस पीपल। So my take on it is that AI will definitely not replace coders, but it will change how we code, right? And it is already doing that. So you won't be replaced by AI, but someone who knows AI will replace you if you don't learn it, right? Because to be honest, मैं अपने पूरे development workflow में AI बहुत use करता हूँ, because I feel that this makes me much more productive, right? For example, giving an example there also, if I have to write some tests, I know how to write them, and अगर मुझे वही बल्क में लिखना है तो मैं खुद से लिखूंगा तो मुझे 2 दिन लगेंगे। But that same thing I can ask the AI, I can teach AI कि ऐसे मुझे लिखना है, and it will do it in 5 minutes. So the level of things you can do with AI is like next level. अभी आप बस इसको एक्सप्लोर करोगे तब you will understand. Chat GPT आप बहुत एक छोटा सा पोर्शन यूज कर रहे हो, a lot of people as well, because something is going to be like replacing something at some point of time. जैसे टेलीफोन्स को मोबाइल फोन्स ने एक हद तक रिप्लेस कर दिया था, आज की डेट में भी देखा जाए तो टेलीफोन्स ना के बराबर ही एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, राइट। तो सिमिलरली बहुत सारे ऐसे फॉर्मेट्स हैं जिसमें एआई डेफिनेटली बहुत ज़्यादा हद तक रिप्लेसमेंट कर देगा, बट इन टर्म्स ऑफ कोडिंग डेफिनेटली नॉट। but you can use it to become better so that your chances of getting hired or staying in a job or working as a developer will always be there. What's next? Just try it out and I'll show you the demo. फटाफट देख लेते हैं, 2 मिनट ही लगेगा. मैं इसलिए मैंने आपको कमांड दिखाई थी, उससे आप स्टार्ट कर सकते हो, बट दिस इज बेसिकली हाउ इट वर्क्स. तो ये फैमिलियर हो आप इस कोड बेस से, थोड़ा सा और जूम कर देता हूँ. ऐसे एक पैकेज डॉट जेसन होगा, आपके पास एक फंक्शन करके फोल्डर है, ठीक है, ये बना के देगा आपको जेनकिट खुद ही. इसके अंदर कुछ आप सोर्स के अंदर आप देखोगे तो कुछ फ्लोज है मैंने बनाए हैं, डॉट टीएस आपको मिलेगा, इसके अंदर एक फ्लो होगा बाय डिफॉल्ट. हाउ यू विल रन इट इज वेयर यू विल अंडरस्टैंड हाउ थिंग्स आर वर्किंग. So let's say clear करते हैं. I have to write then git start. What it will do? It will basically give me a URL. You can see then git tools UI, right? This is again running on localhost 4000. If I open it, you see this UI. Again, this is entirely local, and this is all given by Jenkins directly to you. अब इसके अंदर फ्लोज हैं, जैसे फूड कैटेगरी फ्लो है, मील कैटेगरी फ्लो है, ये सारे फ्लो मैंने बनाए. हेलो वर्ल्ड भी ये मैंने बनाया, ये मेरे कुछ भाइयों के लिए है. तो इसमें तो कोई फ्लो नहीं समझेंगे, ये फ्लो सोल्यूशन होने की ऐसी मैं उम्मीद कर रहा हूँ. फिर तो हेलो वर्ल्ड में इसका बहुत सिंपल काम है, इसको एक चीज प्रिंट करानी है, वो हेलो वर्ल्ड, ठीक है. तो ये वो वाला फ्लो है. तो ये ऐसे और आप प्रॉम्प्ट्स दे सकते हो, जैसे प्रॉम्प्ट्स मैंने लिखे हैं, ये प्रॉम्प्ट्स यहाँ पे बताते हैं कि एग्जैक्ट प्रॉम्प्ट क्या है, और उसके ऊपर एक वेरिएबल है जो यहाँ पे आप डिफाइन कर सकते हो. नाउ ये कोड में कैसे दिखते हैं वो भी दिखाता हूँ एक बार, सो दैट यू गेट बेटर आइडिया. सो प्रॉम्प्ट्स आप क्या कर सकते हो, ऐसे एक प्रॉम्प्ट खोला मैंने, फूड कैटेगरी प्रॉम्प्ट. सो व्हाट इज हैपनिंग हियर, यू विल डिफाइन द मॉडल, जो भी मॉडल आपको यूज करना है, इट कैन बी एनीथिंग. यू विल डिफाइन द टेम्परेचर. टेम्परेचर इज बेसिकली क्रिएटिविटी कितनी कर सकता है वो मॉडल. 0 1 मतलब 0 क्रिएटिविटी, 1 मतलब मैक्सिमम क्रिएटिविटी. एंड देन यू हैव अ स्कीमा. सो इनपुट स्कीमा में अगर आप देखो तो मैंने बोला काउंट बेसिकली कि जनरेट this count of unique food categories and each should have this. ठीक है, you can play with the prompt. Now this same food category prompt is basically here, if you see prompt के अंदर ये रहा dot prompt food category, right? It has this count and it will give some output. Let's try it with our food category flow. तो ये हमारा flow है, इसको हमने बोला count let's say 5. Again आप देखोगे तो input एक JSON है. This is how you communicate mostly. We are using JSON as an example. You can use something else, XML and all. I think it's no support me. You will have to do it yourself. And it gave some output. If you see here, the output दिख रहा है. So it gave you categories का array. उसके अंदर ID है, title है, color है, things like that. Everything is there, right? So basically, now there is a button here which says, अगर आप जाओगे व्यू ट्रेस एंड देन वंस यू ट्रेस इट, तब आपको एग्जैक्टली पता चलेगा हुआ क्या. मतलब दिस इज व्हाट यू कैन कंज्यूम एज अ रिस्पांस, बट बिकॉज़ दैट्स व्हाई वी आर यूजिंग इट इन द फर्स्ट प्लेस. नाउ इफ आई क्लिक ऑन व्यू ट्रेस, दिस इज व्हाट हैपेंड. देयर वाज दिस फ्लो व्हिच वाज एग्जीक्यूटेड, देन इट कॉल्ड दिस फंक्शन जनरेट फूड कैटेगरीज. हमने लिखा है, छोटा सा एक लाइन का कोड है. इसका ड्यूरेशन भी अगर आप राइट साइड में देखो तो हमें पता चल रहा है क्या टाइम है, क्या है, एवरीथिंग यू सी हियर. And this is the model which it did, which is Gemini Pro. Now if you see here, this is not like how we provided input and output, because this is more complex than what we do, right? So इसमें आप messages करके कह रहे होता है, उसके अंदर आप उसके अंदर आप एक रोल स्पेसिफाई करते हो कि आपका यूजर रोल है, फिर आप एक टेक्स्ट देते हो जो कि आपका प्रॉम्प्ट है, फिर आप उसके अंदर और भी सिस्टम प्रॉम्प्ट दे सकते हो, यूजर प्रॉम्प्ट दे सकते हो. उसके अंदर आपने ये बताया कि आउटपुट का फॉर्मेट ये होना चाहिए. फिर उसके बाद आपने उसके और डेटा मेटा डेटा जितना देना है दिया, टेम्परेचर जो सेट करना है वो किया, ये सब चीजें. अब आउटपुट जो आपको मिला वो भी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड नहीं होता, उसमें एक कैंडिडेट्स करके एक फील्ड आती है, उसके अंदर आपके पास इंडेक्सिंग होती है, फिर आपके पास रोल है, फिर उसका कंटेंट है, फिर वो कंटेंट एक फॉर्मेट में, फिर उसकी सेफ्टी इंफॉर्मेशन है. जैसे आपने कभी चैट जीपीटी में कुछ ऐसा चीज लिखोगे जो कि उसके अगेंस्ट है उसकी पॉलिसीज के, तो थोड़ी देर बाद वो टेक्स्ट जनरेट करते करते आपको एरर दे देगा, बोलेगा लाइक दिस इज अगेंस्ट आवर पॉलिसी और यू आर वायलेटिंग सम रूल्स, राइट? सो यू गेट दैट idea from these parameters, जिसमें हमारे पास आता है harm category और ठीक है, information is here, but you can see how easy Jenkit makes it for us. अगर मैं इसमें वापस जाऊं तो ऐसे ही मैंने और भी टूल्स बनाए, जैसे न्यूट्रिशन कैलकुलेटर का एक टूल बनाया हुआ है, जो अगेन जो डेटा आता है फूड का उसको दे देता है वापस किसी एलएलएम को, एंड ये लोकल भी हो सकता है, मतलब यू कैन डू सम ऑफलाइन कैलकुलेशन आल्सो, दैट इज आल्सो टूल, बट you can see this tool here. So if you go back here, तो यहाँ पे एक टूल्स का सेक्शन है जिसमें आपको माई टूल दिख रहा है, ऐसे आप और भी टूल बना सकते हो खुद के। एम्बेडर्स हैं, अगर किसी ने रैग यूज किया है तो रिट्रीवर्स वगैरह भी इसमें आ जाते हैं। एनीवन यूज रैग हियर, राइट? So rags also you can use, you can play with vector databases and all. I don't have a demo here, but you can find it. So again, this is how it looks like, and you can inspect, evaluate whatever you want to do, and you can entirely customize this entire experience. So yeah, that's it. I hope you got some idea about it. Just play with it. I won't restrict you further because बताइए बात क्या है? So if you have any question, you can ask me. Yes.
Non-linear flows be defined as.
That's it. Like what kind of non-linear flow you want?
नहीं, जैसे based on condition of first response, you decide constant.
Yes. So that's where workflows comes into the picture. So workflows का purpose यही है कि you can like create the entire workflow based on certain responses. जैसे मैंने एक content creation का example दिया था, Instagram पे रील बनानी है या YouTube पे स्क्रिप्ट बनानी है और फिर उसका वीडियो बनानी है, that comes under that only. So that becomes easier, and then because you can restrict input and output, because that is the biggest problem with LLMs कि output very बहुत करता है and format specify करना थोड़ा सा critical होता है. So that all those kind of things you can do. Any other questions?
Guys, any questions if you have, you can ask.
Next guys, अगर आपको कुछ भी हो, you can connect me on Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever, or scan this QR code, or ask me here itself. बाहर हो गया.
Thank you so much, Pawan. Thank you so much. Now we have Shrishti from Google. So yeah, she has something to tell you.
ट्वीट कर देना यार, Gen AI, Firebase, Jenkit, Project IT, ये सब का हैशटैग में डाल देना, ठीक है, और इसको टैग करना.
Yeah, yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Srishti Tibrewal and I'm a part of the Google DevRel team. So just a quick thing, I think part of the Genesis and I get. So would love to hear it and we are looking to like retweet and repost everything you'll have learned. So feel free to like tweet about follow the channel. Uh, so one more thing I want to say is your feedback is really important for us right now. We want to know what are your thoughts and how we can improve all the products we're currently building. So please take some time to fill this feedback form. If you all have or are working on some projects using Gemini, Vertex AI, we would love to showcase them at our future events. We do, find new people with newer projects and are looking actually for people who are working on such things to present at our events. So please scan this, give us details about the projects that are working on, and we would love to have them at our future events. I can see only a few of y'all filling the feedback form, so can more of y'all, scan the QR code and fill the feedback form right away. It will just take 2 minutes to that. Okay, please fill the feedback form. In the meantime, I'm handing it over to Monica. Yeah, so guys, are you done with the form? So please fill it. If you when you are done, just give me thumbs up. Yeah. And we have food outside. So before food, let's click a photo, group photo, and then we will go for the food. Okay? And also we will share this. Okay. It's on YouTube, na? Like, so for the photos.
फिर तो इसको end up break
क्या अच्छा okay okay 1 second speakers आ जाइए Bubble
guys अभी आप लोग
no impact yeah
QR हटा दो QR हटा दो स्पीकर से भेजना है हाँ कितना नहीं then also it is counted
हो गया yeah guys now you can come लड़कियां सारी आती हैं।
ठीक है, थैंक यू फॉर वॉचिंग गाइस, खत्म करें।
अब आ गया था।